Chapter 625. Finally, under Watergate's anger, Naruto was directly deprived of his freedom of movement. Killer Bee, who didn't cause any trouble, was also directly affected. Naruto and Killer Bee were temporarily imprisoned in the headquarters of the Allied Ninja Army. After the battle subsided a little, Watergate decided to send a team of ninjas to personally escort Naruto and Killer Bee to the giant turtle island mentioned by the Yondaime Reikage. Accompanied by a team of Umbu, Naruto and Killer Bee were sent to the rear of the camp at the same time. Originally, Naruto was very unconvinced in his heart. After all, he appeared on the battlefield in the hope that he could help his father and the Allied Ninja Army. After getting the recognition of Nine Tails, his strength has surpassed most ninjas. It is really difficult for Naruto to stay in the camp and watch others fight for the future of the shinobi world. However, Watergate's words directly stabbed Naruto's heart like a knife. If Naruto really didn't have any relatives in the world at this moment, naturally no one can stop Naruto's stubborn temper, but at this moment, there are two of his closest relatives in the shinobi world. Naruto can ignore others, but his father and mother are existences that Naruto can never ignore. Along the way, Killer Bee also tried to talk to Naruto, but Naruto was in a bad mood, so he naturally ended the conversation easily. After arriving at the tent prepared by Watergate for Killer Bee and Naruto, this team of Umbu didn't leave. Instead, they directly hid near Naruto and Killer Bee's tent. These Umbu will be responsible for the security of Naruto and Killer Bee's tent. They will also keep an eye on Naruto and Killer Bee so that their two important people, Column Force, won't leave. After entering his tent, Naruto lay directly on his bed. He opened the slightly damp quilt and wrapped his whole body in it. Holding a pillow in his hand, Naruto opened his eyes and looked at the air in front of him. Sure enough, I'm still too weak. Gently opening his mouth, Naruto couldn't help but murmur to himself. Why didn't his father agree with him appearing on the battlefield? Along the way, Naruto has been thinking about such a question. Naruto thought a lot along the way, but even if he was dizzy, Naruto still couldn't think of any clues. But when he came to the tent and collapsed on the bed, Naruto's mind couldn't help but recall the scene where Sasuke used Susanoo and directly cut Yondaime Mizuki Jigura in half. When did Sasuke become so powerful? And unlike himself, Sasuke has an indescribable aura of a strong man. Although he has experienced a lot of hardships along the way, when his father Watergate returned to the village and took the position of Hokage, Naruto himself was more or less taken care of a lot, and his life has been very happy over the years. Living a happy life is indeed a good thing, but living a happy life is also an important reason for people to be lazy. Born in sorrow and die in peace. This is the best portrayal of a ninja. A ninja wants to make great progress and want to become a truly respected strong person. The most important thing is to endure hardships and grow in them. Although Naruto didn't know all of Sasuke's experiences over the years, he also knew some of them under the deliberate collection. Although Naruto hasn't experienced such pain, just thinking about it made Naruto tremble with fear under Orochimaru's hands, and the heart-wrenching pain of killing his brother with his own hands, just thinking about it made Naruto feel frightened. Thinking about it, Sasuke has become so strong because he has so many experiences, right? How good would it be if I could become stronger? Yes, if he was really strong enough. Stronger than his father, stronger than the masked man who claimed to be Uchiha Madara? Then how could he be trapped here without freedom? Naruto didn't have the slightest resentment and unwillingness to Watergate, who locked him here, and Uchiha Sasuke, who went further on the road of the strong. There was only powerlessness and loss for his own strength. Now Sasuke may be shining on the battlefield, right? It's really enviable. With a sigh in his mouth, a kind of inexplicable sleepiness directly hit Naruto's heart. Closing his eyes, Naruto also gradually fell asleep. In the void beyond the ninja world, a figure stood in the void space. This person's eyes glowed with a golden light, as if penetrating countless uncontrollable things and directly looking at something. Compared to Indra, Asura's growth is still not fast enough. Although in terms of strength, if Asura, who stimulated the Nine Tails chakra mode, performs normally, and Indra's eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is not that big of a difference. However, compared to Indra, the Asuras of this generation had a much happier family in life. Without tempering, naturally there will be less progress. It seems that only I can help him. The golden light in the eyes of the figure became brighter, and even in the blink of an eye, it had condensed into a light beam and shone towards the place where his eyes were focused. The light lasted for a moment before the figure closed his eyes again. He murmured softly, "That's right. Perhaps that's about it. I've created a realistic dream for Asura that's comparable to the suffering Indra experienced." Although Golden Millet Dream seems illusory, Everything experienced in the dream is real and not fake for Azura. As long as he can absorb nutrients from such a dream, Azura will definitely make great progress. The figure seemed to be very satisfied and even nodded with a bit of relief. Because the eyes that were shining with golden light were closed, the face of the figure also became clear. His wrinkled cheeks and grayish-white hair were proof of his identity. It was Hagoromo Sennin who once appeared in front of Kurama, but at this moment Hagoromo Sennin was full of an illusory feeling, clearly visible to the naked eye, but full of a feeling of nothingness. Chapter 626. Naruto, who was lying on his bed, fell into a deep sleep. His face became very pale at this moment, and even drops of cold sweat the size of soybeans couldn't help but flow from Naruto's forehead to his bed. Naruto's body, which was tightly wrapped in the quilt, was trembling at the moment, and even the quilt was soaked by the cold sweat on his body. At the moment, Naruto's face was very ferocious. Obviously he was enduring great pain. Naruto's mind has been completely immersed in his own dream. At this moment, Naruto was like a bystander looking at his own dream. The protagonist of the dream was none other than Naruto himself. But the Naruto in the dream was completely different from the Naruto in reality. In the dream, the day Naruto was born was the day he lost his father and became an orphan. Although Woodleaf Village was a peaceful village, most of the people in the village were blind people. Under the deliberate guidance of some people hidden in the dark, Naruto's life in Woodleaf Village alone was not so good. Although Sandaime was still so kind and amiable, occasionally he would show some concern to Naruto as an elder. But in the dream, because of the death of the fourth Hokage Minato Watergate and Uzumaki Shina Kushina, Sandaime was quite tired to deal with it. Although Sandaime was very concerned about Naruto, to be honest, the time he could spend with Naruto was too little. Without the company of his mother, without the careful teaching of Nangongju, Naruto's childhood was almost spent in the discrimination and oppression of his peers. The darkness filled Naruto's childhood in the dream. Naruto tried many times to communicate with the nine tails in his body, but when he couldn't get rid of such a genjutsu, he finally began to face these things in the dream. When Naruto began to look directly at the dream, Naruto also slowly integrated with himself in the dream. As a freshman, he entered the ninja school, made friends, graduated as a ninja. One by one, things similar to Naruto's own memory, but with some differences, appeared in the dream, and as the experience in the dream happened one by one, Naruto's own heart began to be in a trance, and he began to be unable to distinguish the difference between the dream and reality. He was just living in such a dream, with a completely integrated mentality. Although his childhood in the dream wasn't so happy, it was precisely because of the shortcomings in his heart during his childhood that Naruto understood how precious friendship and bondage are. In the dream, Naruto still got the approval of the Nine Tails and still had a lot of close friends. To some extent, Naruto in the dream was more mature and wiser than Naruto in reality. Sure enough, although time passed in the dream, the Fourth Shinobi World War that swept across the entire shinobi world still broke out. The dream also came to an abrupt end at this moment. Naruto was forcibly expelled from the dream and woke up again in reality. Ho, ho, ho. Naruto struggled to open his mouth and gasped for breath. It seemed like only by absorbing a large amount of oxygen could Naruto relieve his physical and mental fatigue. However, with Naruto's intense breathing, a faint smell of blood rushed into Naruto's nose. The smell of fresh blood had clearly just appeared. Naruto no longer had the time to use his rapid breathing to calm his sleepiness. He immediately flung away all the blankets on his body and directly jumped up from the bed to rush out of his tent. The moment he opened the curtains of his tent, the faint smell of blood became even more obvious. Nine Tails Chakra Mode open. Gently closing his eyes, Naruto began to mobilize the chakra mode assigned to him by Nine Tails. Golden flames and black lines directly covered Naruto's body. After entering the chakra mode of Nine Tails, Naruto's perception ability has been greatly enhanced. He directly perceived that the Umbu team that escorted him and Killer Bee has been slaughtered. In Killer Bee's tent, for some reason, Killer Bee fell into a deep sleep. His vigilance as a ninja is very unreasonable, it's as if it exists in name only. Just as Naruto was about to enter Killer Bee's room, he woke up Killer Bee who had fallen into a strange sleep. But just as he walked near Killer Bee's tent, a hostile aura directly appeared behind Naruto. Body Flicker Technique. Directly activating the chakra in his body, Naruto used the body flicker technique to leave his original place. A man wearing a dark red robe with long white hair suddenly appeared behind Naruto's original place. Naruto has never seen Nagato, but in the dream, Naruto replaced his father, defeated 6 paths of pain, and became the hero of Woodleaf. Such a white-haired, stooped figure with Rinnegan is naturally the leader of Akatsuki, the controller of 6 paths of pain, Nagato. And because of Edo Tensei, his legs, which had lost the ability to move due to the forced summoning of Geto Mazo, have become intact at this moment. Although the power of Rinnegan has many shortcomings because it is simulated by Edo Tensei, Nagato's own strength at this moment is definitely not reduced but increased. He dodged quite fast. Looking at Naruto's figure, the corner of Nagato's mouth couldn't help but show some emotion. 9 tails, column force, Uzumaki Naruto? It's a bit ridiculous to say that Namikaze Watergate, and you can be regarded as Jiraiya Sensei's disciples, but you are Namikaze Watergate's child. Should I call you junior brother or martial nephew? Although Nagato's mouth was chatting with Naruto unhurriedly, because Nagato's body was actually not under Nagato's control, Nagato was also attacking Naruto with fierce moves at this moment. His somewhat smiling face and the fierce moves in his hands formed a sharp contrast. And because the taijutsu displayed by Gekido's power is also constantly absorbing the chakra in Naruto's body at this moment. Although Nagato has no way to control the violent 9 tails chakra, the body of Edo Tensei does not feel pain at all and has an extremely strong recovery ability, so Naruto is also in an extreme disadvantage in the battle with Nagato. Chapter 627. Facing Nagato, who could exert most of his strength, Naruto was also under pressure at this moment. When all the special abilities of 6 paths of pain were gathered in one person's body, and these abilities were used flexibly, they did exert a powerful power that could turn something rotten into something magical. Although Naruto also heard the details of the battle with 6 paths of pain from his father, and even listened to his father's careful analysis of the strengths and weaknesses of each of 6 paths of pain. Even in his muddle-headed dream, Naruto also defeated 6 paths of pain and became the Woodleaf hero. But at this moment, Pain only used a part of the power of Gekido and combined it with the power of Tendo to make Naruto suffer. Moreover, Naruto had just broken free from a torturous dream, and his memory was actually in an extremely chaotic period. Now, Naruto could forcibly suppress his physical and mental fatigue and barely fight with Nagato. This was already a manifestation of Naruto's mental toughness. In such a mental state, it was indeed not so easy for Naruto to gain an advantage over Nagato. Although the scene looked very hot, Nagato didn't show any room for mercy every time he made a move. But Naruto was still like a small boat in the storm, shaking but firmly floating on the lake without falling. A small white snake about the size of a thumb quietly poked its head out of Nagato's wide robe. The white snake kept sticking out its tongue as if trying to sense something, and the eyes of the white snake were not empty like ordinary pythons. On the contrary, there was a bit of human brilliance in the eyes of this white snake. After observing the battle between Naruto and Nagato for a while, the white snake also slowly retracted its body back into Nagato's wide robe, and its eyes, which were originally full of human color, became empty again at this moment. Although the Rinnegan was a little gray-black, at this moment the slightly purple part of the eyes was directly filled with gray, and the Rinnegan, which was originally composed of purple and black, has become gray-black at this moment. Sure enough, I shouldn't give Nagato's consciousness too much independent space. He even intentionally or unintentionally distorted the orders I gave him through his spiritual force. Fortunately, I put an insurance on him in advance. Uzumaki Naruto 9 Tails Column Force. Contribute the tailed beast in your body, and let you become a cornerstone for the eternal peace of the ninja world. From Nagato's mouth, a gloomy voice suddenly appeared. Without much guessing, Naruto already knew that at this moment, Nagato has completely become a marionette in the hands of Kabuto Yakushi. Controlling Nagato to gently close his hands, a large number of chakra began to surge in his hands, and a small black sphere slowly appeared in Nagato's hands. Chibaku Tensei Go Dash. From Nagato's mouth came the voice of Kabuto Yakushi, and the black sphere in Nagato's hand directly shot towards Naruto. Not good. Naruto, don't enter the gravitational range of this black sphere. 9 Tails, who has been in Naruto's body and silently perceived what Naruto did after getting his power, finally reminded Naruto under the threat of Chibaku Tensei. Chibaku Tensei, that is the ninjutsu that once sealed the body of Jubi and formed the bright moon in the sky today. Run. Whether it was the reminder of 9 Tails, the fear of being surrounded by Chibaku Tensei in the dream, or the constant sense of crisis from his heart at this moment, all of them were constantly forcing him to leave the gravitational range of this small black sphere. But in the face of such a ninjutsu, is it really possible to escape? Although at this moment, Nagato was under the control of Kabuto Yakushi, and he himself was in the state of Edo Tensei, so there was no way for him to exert his strongest strength, but even so, Chibaku Tensei was not something that Naruto could resist at this moment. Naruto used the body flicker jutsu again and again to go farther away from the core of Chibaku Tensei, but the powerful gravitational force still continued to pull Naruto's body, attracting him. Originally, Naruto could rely on the movement range of his body flicker jutsu and his physical strength to resist this gravitational force to a certain extent, but as time passed, the gravitational force from the black sphere not only did not weaken, but also became more and more intense. Damn it. Brat, work harder. We must not be sucked in. Nine Tails, who was sealed in Naruto's body, finally decided not to hide his strength at this moment. After all, for Naruto, now is a critical moment that determines his life and death, and for Nine Tails, it is the same. Once he is really captured by the person who is trying to resurrect Jubi, he will return to his origin and turn into the original Jubi sacred tree. Then what is the difference between killing Nine Tails and killing him? In order to save their own lives, whether it is a human or a tailed beast, they will do their best. This is the desire to survive engraved in the depths of every creature's bloodline. Naruto opened his mind completely to Naruto, and all his will merged with Naruto's. A large amount of chakra rushed into Naruto's body without any hindrance. At this moment, Naruto and Nine Tails were truly integrated into one. The golden chakra flame that originally burned on Naruto's body gradually solidified at this moment. The illusory flame turned into silk threads that intertwined and formed a golden trench coat that reached his knees. The black patterns that originally spread on Naruto's body expanded at this moment, adding a black lining and pattern to the golden trench coat. Feeling the huge amount of chakra rushing out of his body, Naruto couldn't help but roar at the sky. With a confident smile at the corner of his mouth, Naruto murmured to Nine Tails in his body. Nine Tails. No, I should call you Nine Lama. Don't worry, I won't let what you fear become reality. Because he had completely shared his mind with Nine Tails, Naruto naturally felt what Nine Tails was worried about from Nine Tails' mind. Nine Tails also obtained a part of Naruto's memory from Naruto's dream. Although he still felt a little uneasy, Nine Tails' mouth still curled into a smile when he heard Naruto's words. He said to Naruto, "Brat, if you have time to worry about me, you might as well do your best to protect yourself now." After hearing Nine Tails' words, Naruto's smile gradually disappeared. The chakra on his body surged and the golden flames almost instantly formed the huge body of Nine Tails. He grabbed onto the ground with his claws and stood in front of the Chibaku Tensei that had absorbed a lot of rocks and soil. Chapter 628. After entering the Kurama mode, Naruto's eyes also changed from the previous blue appearance to scarlet eyes. A pair of eyes with a bit of violence, just staring at the huge Chibaku Tensei in front of him and Nagato who was suspended behind it like a god overlooking all living beings. Naruto, we are running out of time. The body condensed with chakra can only last for a while, so you have to listen to what I'm going to say next. Although Chibaku Tensei is very powerful, it's not like there is no way to deal with it. In the hands of Hagoromo, Chibaku Tensei can directly seal the body of Jubi. If we face such a Chibaku Tensei, we have absolutely no room to fight back. But now that this kid is using Chibaku Tensei, we already have some room to resist, then I have a way to deal with it. If any ninjutsu wants to maintain, it must rely on the supply of chakra from the caster. From the point that the power of Chibaku Tensei is constantly increasing, this kid is definitely constantly injecting chakra into the core of Chibaku Tensei. So if we want to deal with Chibaku Tensei in front of us, the best way is to directly use our strongest attack to kill the caster and make him stop the chakra attack on Chibaku Tensei. Without the chakra supply, Chibaku Tensei will directly turn back into rocks and soil. As Nine Tails said, this method is not very smart, but it is also an extremely practical method. Hearing Nine Tails' words, Naruto also nodded slightly and then said, I'm not very clear about so many theoretical things, but Kurama, what you just said is the only way we can think of now. Regardless of whether it succeeds or not, we have to give it a try. Seeing that Naruto did not reject his proposal, Nine Tails also controlled the body condensed with chakra to gather the Nine Tails together. Chakra gathered into a sphere, and the yin and yang attributes of chakra were mixed in a ratio of 2:8, and a black sphere appeared directly in the center of the Nine Tails. This Bijidama didn't take too long to brew. Overall, it was about the same size as the head of Nine Tails formed by chakra. Kyubi directly swallowed the semi-finished black Bijidama in his mouth. His belly swelled a little bit, and he directly opened his mouth, and a colorful beam of light that couldn't be described with words rushed from his mouth to Nagato who was suspended in the air. Although this process sounded very complicated, in fact it only took a very short time. The huge beam of light shot directly in Nagato's direction. At this moment, Nagato was under the control of Yakushi's pocket. Such long-range control naturally had a certain disadvantage. Because of his slow reaction, Nagato was almost hit directly by the Bijudama. Looking at Nagato's body directly submerged in the beam of light, Naruto and Kurama's hearts slightly relaxed. After all, for Naruto and Kurama, this kind of ninjutsu that sealed the Jubi really caused a lot of psychological pressure on them. So, now it's over. Naruto was just about to communicate with Kurama in his body to retract the huge chakra, but before he could finish his words, Kurama in Naruto's body suddenly shouted, "Brat, be careful." After hearing Kurama's words, Naruto's heart also flashed with a sense of crisis, which also urged Naruto to quickly leave his current place. However, even though he was on high alert, his body still needed some time to react. One by one, black crows appeared in front of Naruto. The black crows gathered together one by one, and Itachi Uchiha, who was also wearing a dark red robe, also appeared in front of Naruto. Itachi Uchiha's eyes had turned into the Mangekyo Sharingan at this moment. The original whites of his eyes were completely covered by black-gray. Obviously, Itachi Uchiha was also completely under Yakushi's control. Mangekyo Dojutsu, Tsukuyami. The triangular windmill in Itachi Uchiha's eyes spun at high speed, and Naruto, who was opposite Itachi Uchiha, was directly pulled into Tsukuyami's world. Naruto had actually entered Tsukuyami's world and received Tsukuyami's attacks. He understood how terrifying the feeling of time, pain, and even everything being controlled in Tsukuyami's world was. In Tsukuyami's world, no matter how long it took, it was only an instant to the outside world. In the outside world, Naruto's face turned pale almost instantly. Kurama mode was also forcefully deactivated. Looking at Naruto's state, it was obvious that he was relying on his willpower to hold on. As long as he relaxed, he would definitely fall into a coma. The Chibaku Tensei in the sky also lost its power supply at that moment. It shattered into pieces and smashed to the ground. The immense force caused dust to splatter. This dust turned into a magnificent background behind Itachi Uchiha. No matter how much the world fluctuated, it didn't seem to be able to change the pace of Itachi Uchiha walking towards Naruto. Could it be that God really wants me to be defeated here, and then take back my life and the free will of the entire ninja world? Naruto couldn't help but have such a question in his heart. After all, the information obtained from Nine-Tails' memory and the experience in his dream made Naruto occasionally feel that there was an irresistible existence like fate in this world. Just as Naruto was constantly denying and doubting himself, a sentence suddenly appeared in Naruto's mind. My fate is in my own hands, not in the hands of the heavens. Heaven and earth are ruthless, treating all things as straw dogs. But are we really straw dogs? Every human has their own will and their own pursuit. If the world is really regulated by the development process and all the changes in our lives are really regulated, then this is the time for us to exert our spiritual power. How can I admit defeat so easily here? I still have a lot of things to do. Absolutely. Yes. No. I can't. Just fall here? Naruto clenched his teeth tightly and forced his tired body to stand up. Chapter 629. Feudal struggle. Seeing Naruto struggling to stand up from the ground, Itachi Uchiha, who was completely under Naruto's control, coldly glanced at Naruto and said in a half-contemptuous and half-angry tone. People like Naruto were the most hated people in Kabuto's eyes. No matter what kind of setbacks they encountered, they could still clearly understand what they wanted, and they could firmly move towards their goal. Since young, in order to maintain his orphanage, Kabuto joined Danzo's route without hesitation. Relying on his age and advantage, Kabuto became one of Danzo's trump cards among the infiltrators. But Root was a place that didn't need people with emotions. Since Kabuto joined Root in order to maintain his orphanage, then as the leader of Root, Danzo had to sever the bond between Kabuto and the orphanage. And the best way to sever the bond was to let Kabuto and the orphanage's dean, walking shaman Yakushi, kill each other. Although Yakushi was a good chess piece for Danzo, but compared to Kabuto, who had great potential, she was simply not worth mentioning. Sacrificing Yakushi in exchange for a perfect tool, such a simple calculation problem didn't require much effort for Danzo. It's also because of Danzo's arrangement that after killing Tenzin, Kabuto's will was directly broken. Even now, Kabuto was still trying to find the value of his existence, so he continued to act on his own. Mangekyo Dojutsu, Susanoo. The triangular windmill in Itachi Uchiha's eyes spun rapidly at this moment. Two streams of black blood seeped out of Itachi Uchiha's eye sockets. Unlike Uchiha Sasuke's blue-purple Susanoo, Itachi Uchiha's Susanoo was slightly red, as if the power of blood was poured out of it. It looked particularly majestic and oppressive. But at this moment, Itachi Uchiha was in the Edo Tensei state, and his Mangekyo Sharingan was also based on the Edo Tensei state. So at this moment, Itachi Uchiha's Susanoo was actually still in the first stage of the skeleton state. But this Susanoo was already enough to crush Uzumaki Naruto in his weakened state, wasn't it? Naruto, who was pale and had difficulty standing up, stood in front of Susanoo with his small body trembling. Although his body looked so fragile at this moment, Naruto's his eyes were shining like two bright stars in the night sky. Uzumaki Naruto, take this. In the hand of Susanoo, a long sword with a slight golden luster condensed directly. At this moment, Yakushi Kabuto seemed to have directly put the matter of capturing Uzumaki Naruto to the back of his mind. Because Uzumaki Naruto's eyes were too dazzling for Yakushi Kabuto. Seeing such a pair of eyes, Yakushi Kabuto wanted to destroy them. The golden long sword stabbed straight in the direction of Naruto. Although Naruto's willpower was incomparably firm at this moment, the weakness of his body was an indisputable fact. At this moment, Naruto's pursuit was no longer to defeat Itachi Uchiha, but to be able to leave this world in the best state. The long sword was about to hit his body, and the huge force also brought a strong wind and the noise of air being cut. Even in the face of such a huge gust of wind, Naruto still opened his eyes wide and murmured slightly in his mouth. Kurama. I'm sorry I obviously said such big words, but in the end I didn't achieve it. Father, Mother. Forgive me for not being able to serve you, but I don't regret dying for the future of the shinobi world. I have always been a person who doesn't abide by the rules, and now I will continue to be a person who doesn't abide by the rules. The chakra of a bijou is very violent, and it's the most basic common sense for everyone who knows about bijou. At this moment, Naruto's body is weak to the limit. In such a situation, if Column Force forcibly uses the chakra in his body, it's very likely that he will directly fall into an extremely dangerous situation. The most optimistic estimate is that after using a certain degree of power, Column Force and the bijou will directly die. Brat, what are you talking about? We bijou are immortal as long as there is chakra in this shinobi world. Although death is strange to me, it's not enough to make me afraid. After so many years, you are the first ninja who has gained my approval. If it's your own decision, even if you die once, what's wrong with that? In fact, Nine Tails is not a very stable person. As the most powerful existence among the Nine Tails is a very adventurous existence. Although Kabuto's behavior of playing with the souls of the dead can't make Nine Tails feel angry, but it's inevitable that there's some disgust in his heart. Since Naruto has decided to fight with Kabuto at all costs, how can Kurama abandon Naruto and run away? Hearing the words of Nine Tails, Naruto's mouth flashed a smile. Sure enough, whether it's in reality or in the dream, Kurama is an existence worthy of deep friendship. Condensing the little remaining chakra in his body, Naruto used his own weak chakra as a catalyst to transfer some of the chakra that Nine Tails previously assigned to him. In Naruto's abdomen, a golden flame began to slowly rise. As long as Naruto is willing, it will only take a moment for Naruto's body to be completely covered by the golden flame and enter the Nine Tails chakra mode. Naruto is waiting for the moment when the golden sword in the hand of Itachi Uchiha is about to touch him. He will directly burst out all the chakra in his body and defeat Itachi Uchiha, then directly find the location of Kabuto using Itachi Uchiha as a coordinate and directly kill him. Using his own life to directly defeat one of the two major forces of Akatsuki, the Edo Tensei, such a choice is actually not a loss. After all, such an action can definitely save thousands of ninjas, right? Chapter 630. Facing death. Even if death is coming, he is still willing to face such a threat. Humans were creatures to begin with. In the face of death, anyone's heart would tremble. This was an innate instinct of living creatures. Seeing the golden greatsword getting closer and closer to him, does Naruto not feel fear in his heart? Of course not. At this moment, Naruto's knees are trembling slightly because of the threat of death. But if he uses his death to exchange for the hope of thousands of people, then Naruto is definitely willing to do so. Because his ability is strong enough to crush any enemy, using his own strength to defeat people who harm the world, such a person can definitely be called a good person. But when his ability is not enough, he is willing to sacrifice his life to save others. Such a person deserves the title of hero. A real hero is not a person who deliberately pursues the title of hero. A true hero was actually someone who followed his or her own heart to live and save others. A strong person was not necessarily a hero, but a hero must have the heart of a strong person. Come on. Come on. Come on. Naruto roared in his heart, but his expression was extraordinarily calm. What Naruto needs now is not to be blinded by his own blood. What Naruto needs now is to calmly calculate and make full use of every second he can. When the golden longsword was about to reach him, and Naruto was about to release the Nine Tails chakra in his body regardless of his safety, a black flame arrow was directly inserted in front of Naruto, blocking the golden longsword. Ketan, Kagutsuki. The dark Amaterasu flame was molded and turned into an arrow on the longbow in his hand and released. Sasuke is here. The moment he saw the Amaterasu arrow, Naruto knew that Sasuke is here. Although Naruto's heart is not so calm after being saved by his best friend and his competitor Uchiha Sasuke again and again, but regaining the hope of life also made Naruto's heart feel a little joy. Yakushi Kabuto. Masked man. You playing with other people's souls is a small matter for me, but you should not have involved my brother in it. I want all of you to know how much you've regretted what you've done. At this moment, Sasuke can be said to be quite angry. His cheeks that were almost paralyzed were slightly distorted. If there is something in Uchiha Sasuke's heart that must not be touched, then Sasuke's brother Itachi Uchiha must be second to none. In Sasuke's heart, his brother has experienced too much pain. Almost all the darkness in the shinobi world was imposed on his brother, but Itachi Uchiha was still able to bear such pain for him, struggling to survive between Akatsuki and Woodleaf Village. Although his brother is dead, in fact, from Sasuke's point of view, his brother leaving this world is actually a relief. But now, because of his own selfish desires, Kabuto disturbed his brother's peace after his death, and made his brother directly become a marionette in Kabuto's hands. For Sasuke, such a thing is simply unforgivable. Just as Uchiha Sasuke's mind was agitated, a crow suddenly emerged from Sasuke's body. The crow itself is Itachi Uchiha's summoned beast. Few people in the shinobi world use such a summoned beast. When Sasuke saw that his brother's summoned beast suddenly appeared in his body, he was also surprised. What made Sasuke even more surprised was not that a crow came out of his body, but that there was a Manjikyu Sharingan in the shape of a four-cornered pinwheel in the crow's eyes. Sasuke had never seen this Manjikyu Sharingan before, but before Sasuke could react, the Manjikyu pattern in the crow's eyes rotated at high speed. Manjikyu Dojutsu, Kodo Amatsukami. Uchiha Shirsue's Manjikyu Sharingan has an ability that is almost against cognition, that is, forcibly changing the will of the subject. Such a statement is actually a bit vague and uncertain because the so-called change, what kind of restrictions the change has, and what kind of effects it will trigger we don't know. Although Kodo Amatsukami is a kind of genjutsu from its function, it is closer to touching the most essential rules of the world. Although there is no way to figure out what principle Kodo Amatsukami uses to play its role, at this moment Kodo Amatsukami seems to be directly cast on Itachi Uchiha, who was controlled by Kabuto, like a transcription ninjutsu. The will that was distorted by the charm was corrected again at this moment, and the thick black-gray color in Itachi Uchiha's eyes gradually faded. Although his body and eyes still have the characteristics of Edo Tensei, at this moment, Itachi Uchiha's eyes have regained their clarity. Seeing Sasuke wrapped in the complete Susanoo, Itachi's eyes flashed with a hint of relief, but Itachi didn't talk to Sasuke first. Instead, he controlled his Susanoo to walk towards the place where Naruto defeated Nagato just now. He waved the golden sword in Susanoo's hand and directly slashed Nagato, who had turned black but still showed signs of recovery. A shadow was pulled out of Nagato's body, and the scorched body, which originally had a human shape, immediately collapsed, leaving only a somewhat broken white Zetsu clone in it. Sasuke, you've grown up. Looking at his younger brother, Itachi finally spoke the first sentence with his own voice. The moment he heard Itachi's voice, Sasuke's eyes also turned red. Coming from his brother's praise, the anger in Sasuke's heart slowly subsided. After all, although he was very angry that his brother's soul was pulled back into this world, being able to talk to his brother again is also a thing that makes Sasuke sincerely happy. Releasing the Susanoo wrapped around him, Sasuke slowly walked towards his brother. Chapter 631. Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke are actually very similar people. Even if his heart has been stormy, there is still no way to express the feelings in his heart. The two men stood face to face, facing each other silently, but people could feel the deep feelings between the two brothers. Unknowingly, the child who relied on me has now become a stronger person than me. Sasuke, you did a good job. In the end, in the silence of the two, Itachi Uchiha spoke first. I didn't do well, my eyes. Looking at Itachi, Sasuke's suppressed sadness finally broke out. Raising his head, Sasuke revealed the eyes he took from his father. The eternal Manjikyu Sharingan pattern intertwined with 3 pinwheels and 6 pointed stars appeared so clearly in Sasuke's eyes. Itachi also saw the pattern in his brother's eyes and couldn't help but be silent. Itachi Uchiha knew that his father had the power of Manjikyu Sharingan, and he also saw what kind of pattern his father had. Looking at the pattern in Sasuke's eyes at this moment, Itachi knew that his father gave his own eyes to Sasuke, so that Sasuke had the power beyond Manjikyu. Originally, Itachi thought that Sasuke would transplant his eyes into his eyes, but he didn't expect that Sasuke would transplant Uchiha Fugaku's eyes into his own eyes. But on second thought, as one of the few people in the world who knew Sasuke best, Itachi also understood Sasuke's mood. The cold face showed a bit of gentleness, just like a mountain peak that was covered with snow all year round was suddenly illuminated by the sun, and then reflected the warm and soft light. At this moment, Itachi looked extremely gentle. Putting his hand on Sasuke's shoulder, Itachi said to Sasuke, "It's okay, I understand your mood. It's not your fault. If it were me, it's likely that I would make the same choice as you. But since you're wearing his eyes, you have to be prepared for others to associate the two of them with this pair of eyes." Although in Itachi's heart, Naruto is a trustworthy person, but after all, Naruto is the son of the 4th Hokage Wave Watergate, so when mentioning Uchiha Fugaku and his mother, Itachi is very careful to hide Uchiha Fugaku's name. Sasuke didn't think so much, but Sasuke could fully understand the meaning of Itachi's words. Blinking his eyes, Sasuke regained his calmness and said to Itachi, "Don't worry, Itachi. Don't worry, they are all staying in a very safe place. Even if the 4th Shinobi World War comes, they won't be affected. I will use the power I got from him well. It's not only for the sake of realizing my dream in life, but also for the sake of the Uchiha clan." Although the extermination of the Uchiha clan had a lot to do with Itachi, from the bottom of his heart, Itachi actually hopes that his clan can continue. At that time, the proud and arrogant Uchiha clan was not what the Uchiha clan should be like in Itachi's mind. On the contrary, Sasuke, who has grown up now, looks more calm and introverted, but he doesn't deliberately hide it when it's time to show off. If the Uchiha clan is led by Sasuke, Itachi will naturally be very happy to see that the Uchiha clan can continue, right? Since I've already decided, I'll just focus on moving towards my goal. You are my proud brother. As long as you are willing to do something, you can do it. When he heard the words proud brother from Itachi's mouth, Sasuke couldn't help but feel a little sour at the tip of his nose. For so many years, in order to stimulate Sasuke and let Sasuke maintain the hatred in his heart, Itachi will call Sasuke, stupid brother, every time they meet. When Itachi once again called Sasuke, proud brother, Sasuke didn't know how to describe his mood. Brother. Seeing the agitation in Sasuke's eyes, Itachi gently put his finger on Sasuke's forehead, blocking all the words from Sasuke's chest. Sasuke, I understand that you are very excited to see me again. But after all, I am a person who has left this world. This time I returned to this world because of a coincidence. For me, this world is no longer my world. Sasuke, do you understand what I mean? Yes, Itachi is already a dead person. The reason why he can appear in front of Sasuke again is that Kabuto used Edo Tensei to summon the dead Itachi Uchiha back to this world. From Sasuke's selfishness, in fact, Sasuke hopes that his brother can stay in this world with his own will, but there is still Kabuto behind Itachi Uchiha, and he was deeply hurt by Ninja World. Sasuke can't bear to let Itachi stay in Ninja World in such a half-dead state again. I understand. Trying to keep his brain from being controlled by his emotions, Sasuke almost gritted his teeth and said these 3 words. Itachi can obviously see that Sasuke's mood is not so good at the moment, but Itachi still wants Sasuke to recognize such a fact. As a living person, no matter what the reason is, he can't be so obsessed with the dead, even if this person is so important to him. Let's go, let's end all this illogical. Looking at Sasuke, Itachi said firmly. Of course, Sasuke didn't forget Uzumaki Naruto, who was still here, and slowly walked to Naruto's side and said to Naruto, Naruto, I'm sorry that I can't catch up with you properly. You go back to the headquarters of the Ninja Allied Forces first. My brother and I will be back soon. Ignoring how Naruto would react, Sasuke turned around and left. Looking at the backs of Sasuke and Itachi, Naruto's hand couldn't help but clench tightly. At this moment, the unwillingness in Naruto's heart was like a flame. Is he still too weak? Chapter 632. Following Itachi all the way, the knot in Sasuke's heart was slowly unraveled. His brother is dead, and this is something that can't be changed. The dead can't be resurrected. This time he can see his brother again. In fact, it's a gift brought by fate for Sasuke. In this case, why should he be obsessed with how long this gift can last? When her brother left this world, he had already entrusted everything to her. If he shirked his responsibility now and wanted to continue to let his brother who has already rested in the world, wouldn't he also fail to live up to his brother's expectations for him? Eliminating Yakushi Kabuto, cutting off one of the arms of Akatsuki, and giving the ninja world more hope for the future. But compared to these actions that can bring great prestige, what makes Sasuke more excited is that this battle will be the first time he and his brother fight together. This will be the most precious memory in Sasuke's heart. Sasuke will never allow such a battle to be tainted because of some psychological reasons. Through the remaining chakra in Yakushi Kabuto's body and the talisman with a faint connection between him and Yakushi Kabuto, Itachi Uchiha rushed in the direction of Yakushi Kabuto with his fastest speed. Outside the cloud-hidden village as the first battlefield, the situation was very anxious at the moment. As one of the supreme leaders of the ninja allied forces, Gaara has appeared on the battlefield at this moment, cooperating with the ninja allied forces to seal the deceased powerhouses summoned by the Edo Tensei. But until now, except for Gaara's father, Yondaime Kazekage Raza, Sandaime Raikage, Nidaime Mizukage, and Nidaime Tsuchikage are still very active on the battlefield, and the ninja allied forces are still suppressed. Just when the battle was getting intense, a powerful aura suddenly appeared on the battlefield. The powerful momentum almost caught the attention of all the ninjas in the battle. A figure wearing a retro red plate armor with a very flamboyant long hair directly appeared on the battlefield. Uchiha Madara. Looking at the figure that appeared on the battlefield, Void as the second Tsuchikage, had a hard time even speaking. After all, the reason why Wu passed away was largely due to the severe injuries he received after encountering Uchiha Madara, which left behind a fatal internal injury. Sure enough, because there hasn't been any progress for a long time, those lunatics of Akatsuki sent this person out? Akatsuki's people are simply a group of lunatics. Do they really think they can control such a super expert? Genjutsu looked at Uchiha Madara with fear in his eyes. For all the people of that era, Uchiha Madara was the biggest nightmare in their hearts. Ruthless and domineering, no one can bear such a title more than Uchiha Madara. Judging from the eyes of Uchiha Madara at this moment, Medicine Master's Pocket obviously used various methods to enhance his control over Uchiha Madara to the highest degree. Controlling Uchiha Madara, the overlapping lines belonging to the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan slowly rotated directly. Mangekyo Dojutsu, Susanoo. At this moment, Uchiha Madara didn't use the first stage of Susanoo like Itachi Uchiha. Instead, he directly used the complete form of Susanoo. The azure blue body was burning with chakra flame, and the armor of Crow Tengu on the body of Susanoo looked particularly majestic and dignified. After using the Mangekyo Dojutsu's profound Susanoo, as the controller of Uchiha Madara, the pressure on Medicine Master's Pocket became extremely great. He even had to relax a lot of his control over the other Edo Tensei and focus his attention on Uchiha Madara. But is Uchiha Madara really so easy to control? The answer is obvious, of course it's not like this. At the moment when he used the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, in fact, Uchiha Madara's consciousness has already awakened. Although Medicine Master's Pocket tried to control Uchiha Madara's own powerful spiritual force made Medicine Master's control shaky. On the battlefield, because Kuroto's control has weakened a lot, Nun Genjutsu, and they also diverted the ninjutsu that they were preparing to release towards Susanoo's direction. Dust Release, Primordial World Detachment Technique. Water Release, Water Cannon Air Practice Bullet. Lightning Release, Black Thunder. Lightning Water Column, and Dust Release simultaneously attacked the place where Uchiha Madara was located. On the spiritual level, Uchiha Madara and Medicine Master's Pocket were crushing each other, so naturally, there was no way for him to exert his strongest strength. Even his Susanoo couldn't be controlled freely. The powerful attacks directly fell on Susanoo's body. Although Susanoo's defense was very strong in the face of such an attack, it was still difficult to avoid being directly knocked down to the ground, splashing a huge cloud of dust on the ground. Did the three Kage-sama succeed? Although they don't know why the three Kage of the past recovered their ability to control their bodies at this moment, but the momentum of Susanoo just now was enough to let everyone know how terrifying Uchiha Madara is as an Edo Tensei. Seeing that the three Kage's attack directly knocked down Susanoo, almost everyone had some expectations in their hearts. Even facing the Kage of the past, everyone in the ninja allied forces didn't want to face Uchiha Madara, who was called Wood Leaf Ashura by people. However, the second-generation Mizukage Genjutsu, the second-generation Tsuchikage Wayne, the third-generation Reikage AI, and the fifth-generation Kazekage Gaara's eyes were filled with seriousness. It's really exciting. I didn't expect to return to the ninja world and meet so many familiar faces. Wu Guideng Huanyu, who gave you the guts to attack me? After the smoke and dust dissipated, the huge Susanoo once again appeared in the field of vision of everyone, but unlike the previous Susanoo, the current Susanoo was obviously more solid. If the previous complete Susanoo brought a sense of majesty to the ninjas of the ninja allied forces, then the current Susanoo directly detonated the deepest fear in everyone's heart. Chapter 633. You're just a group of losers, how dare you offend me here? Looking at Wu and Genjutsu, Uchiha Madara's eyes were as cold as ice. Uchiha Madara knew that Wu and Genjutsu were on his side, but such a clown dared to attack him? Their behavior was certainly commendable, but it was also an offense to Uchiha Madara. Originally, according to Uchiha Madara's plan, he should use the Geto reincarnation technique to directly reappear in the ninja world in a perfect state. At that time he would take away his Rinnegan from the Uzumaki kid, and regain his most powerful strength, and then seal the Jubi collected by Uchiha Obito in his body, and obtain the power of the six paths, becoming another existence like the Sage of the Six Paths. With the power of the Jubi and the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, he would project his eyes on the moon, realize the Eye of the Moon project, and bring eternal peace to the ninja world, proving that he surpassed his old rival Senju Takuma in all aspects. But now he had been resurrected in a half-dead manner, and a reckless brat was even trying to control him. The Jubi didn't resurrect, and several defeated opponents dared to attack him. Such a series of realities that didn't meet his expectations became the fuel for Uchiha Madara's anger. As a peerless powerhouse, Uchiha Madara never liked to hide his emotions. And these few Kages may be insurmountable existences for others, but for Uchiha Madara they were nothing. Destroying a few small characters who were only worthy of dancing in front of him for his appreciation, they were destroyed. He slowly opened his hands, and his hands began to form hand seals at a special frequency. Chakra was constantly surging, and Susanoo and Uchiha Madara also began to form hand seals together. Susanoo, Fire Release, Great Fire Annihilation Arrow. Uchiha Madara's arrogant and oppressive voice directly echoed throughout the battlefield, and a huge fireball almost the size of Susanoo was directly released. The fireball was very huge in the air, and after touching the ground the fireball spread directly. The huge attack area didn't weaken the power of the Great Fire Annihilation Arrow, and everyone could feel the scorching heat of the Great Fire Annihilation Arrow. Seeing that Uchiha Madara not only launched an attack on the three Kages who attacked him, but also directly used such a large-scale attack, the ninjas of the ninja allied forces were a little panicked. But after all, the ninjas from various villages with rich experience, after a brief moment of panic and a small number of casualties, everyone acted. The ninjas who were not so good at ninjutsu quickly retreated, and the ninjas of the 5 great ninja villages who were proficient in water release and earth release also quickly pressed forward, and their hands were also quickly forming hand seals. Ninjutsu unit, get ready. Shikaku Nara's voice appeared in the mind of everyone in the ninja allied forces. Obviously, Shikaku Nara is now directly commanding the entire ninja allied forces with Yamanaka Inoichi's special ability. Earth release, earth wall, earth release, earth wall ready? 3, 2, 1 release. Listening to Shikaku Nara's instructions, the ninjas of the rock village who were proficient in earth release released earth wall at the same time. Earth wall itself is a relatively low-level ninjutsu, but when a large number of ninjas cast the same ninjutsu at the same time, everyone's ninjutsu superimposed on each other, forming an extremely magnificent earth wall. Earth release ninja, earth release, earth flow wall countdown. 3, 2, 1 release. Shikaku Nara once again issued an order to the ninjas of the allied forces, and the ninjas who were proficient in earth release once again released earth wall at the same time. Compared to the earthen wall, the thickness and length of the earthen wall have been greatly increased, but because of the increase in the level of ninjutsu, the scale of the earthen wall was not as terrifying as the previous earthen wall released by the ninja allied forces at the same time, but it still formed a huge scale. The earth wall and the earth wall formed a protective wall at the same time, blocking Uchiha Madara's fire arrow. Seeing that the coverage of the fire arrow was limited, Shikaku Nara once again issued an order. Water release ninja, water release. Water shockwave countdown. 3, 2, 1 release. Compared to the earth release ninja, the environment of the cloud village in the land of lightning is not so suitable for the use of water release ninjutsu. After all, the environment of the land of lightning is relatively dry. In such an environment, there is naturally not so much water that can be directly used to use water release. Although a large number of ninjas used water shockwave at the same time, the effect was not so good. A large amount of water rushed into the sea of fire formed by the fire arrow, but it only reduced the scale of the fire arrow slightly, and directly evaporated into a large amount of water vapor by the high temperature. Water release, great waterfall technique ready? 3, 2, 1 release. Through Yamanaka Inoichi's ability, Shikaku Nara naturally sensed the situation on the battlefield, and once again issued an order to the water ninjas to cast ninjutsu at the same time. Compared to the water shockwave, the level of the great waterfall technique was lower, but the number of water ninjas who could cast such a ninjutsu also increased a lot. A large amount of water gathered together, and like a moth to a flame, it directly rushed towards the huge flames burning on the ground, and finally the area covered by the fire arrow was completely extinguished. On the scorched ground, the Naide Mizukage Hozuki Genjutsu is continuously outputting his chakra, casting a hollow water release, water prison technique. The second Tsuchikage and the third Reikage were both hiding in the water prison jutsu at this moment. These three Kages also used this jutsu to protect themselves from Madara's Susanoo, fire release, great fire destruction arrow. But whether it was Genjutsu Hozuki or Sandame, some parts of their bodies had a bit of scorch marks. Even with the help of the Edo Tensei, their bodies were almost immortal, but at this moment, it was very difficult for them to recover. Is this Uchiha Madara? It's full of overwhelming power, making it difficult for anyone to have the mood to resist, and can only float obediently. Such a thought appeared in the hearts of every ninja in the ninja allied forces almost at the same time. Just one ninjutsu made the entire ninja allied forces so difficult to deal with. What can they rely on to stop the powerful Uchiha Madara? Chapter 634. Previously, Kabuto had been trying his best to control the powerful Uchiha Madara, and it was precisely because of this that Do, Genjutsu, and A were temporarily out of his control. When Uchiha Madara broke out with his power and crushed the ordinary ninjas of the Ninja Alliance, Kabuto also reconnected the three Kage and completely controlled them. Their eyes were covered with gray Do Genjutsu, and they knelt on the ground almost at the same time. Genjutsu, who was the leader of the three, lowered his head slightly and said to Uchiha Madara, "I'm really sorry, Madara-sama. Because of my negligence I actually let these three guys attack you, it's really disgraceful." Kabuto's voice came out from Genjutsu's mouth, and Uchiha Madara also looked at Genjutsu, Do, and A who were kneeling on the ground. Uchiha Madara had a certain understanding of these three people with White Zetsu's special ability. These three were also strong people in the past, and now they are directly controlled by Kabuto, which is really a sad thing. However, with Uchiha Madara's cold temperament, these three people who have little contact with him have no way to resonate with Uchiha Madara. However, Kabuto's action of controlling the three Kage to directly ask for forgiveness from Uchiha Madara was not a wise action. It is true that three strong people in the past kneeling in front of him and asking for forgiveness is an exciting thing for any ninja. But Uchiha Madara is different. In the era of the chaotic war, to be honest, the number of strong people in the ninja world was more than the current ninja world. In that era, Uchiha Madara didn't know how many Kage-level strong people knelt in front of him and asked for forgiveness. But now, such a lineup is not enough to make Uchiha Madara's heart flutter, and forgive Kabuto for what he did to him. You and him have quite a few schemes of your own, huh? Although it's not so clear what the relationship between this person who can use the Edo Tensei and Uchiha Obito is, Madara is very clear about the fact that Uchiha Obito and Kabuto are working together to control him. Hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Kabuto, who was far away in the depths of the Cloud Village, couldn't help but be wrapped in a cold chill. Uchiha Madara didn't threaten him, nor did he say any harsh words, but such a simple sentence directly stabbed Kabuto's heart like a sharp knife. It was a kind of trembling from the depths of his body, making Kabuto involuntarily have a feeling of fear. Even though he was looking at Madara through Genjutsu's eyes, Kabuto still felt like he was looking at Madara. His sharp eyes and indifferent attitude directly rushed into his mind. Everyone has their own selfish desires, and this is something that can't be changed. Some of your little moves behind my back can't be hidden from me. But I don't intend to directly condemn you after all, you are still of some value to me. I haven't returned to this ninja world yet, so I can't control any of your little moves. But since I'm back, then you should restrain your actions that deviate from my expectations. Otherwise, these three people will be your examples. Before he finished speaking, Uchiha Madara controlled Susanoo to directly pull out the long sword hanging on the side of Crow Tengu's armor and directly cut the three Kages kneeling in front of him. The former Kages of the 5 great ninja villages who directly crushed the ninja coalition with their own strength were directly cut in half by Susanoo. Chakra flames spread out from the katana, directly burning the bodies of the 3 Kage, preventing their bodies from automatically recovering. Seeing Wu, Genjutsu and these 3 Kage tier rankers have lost their fighting ability, Kabuto made a prompt decision to cancel the Edo Tensei for these 3 Kage tier rankers. Controlling the Edo Tensei will consume the chakra from Orochimaru in Kabuto's body. In order to make the best use of the power in his hands, Kabuto will naturally give up on these people who can't play a role in a short time. You have a little brain. Looking at Kabuto directly cancel the Edo Tensei, Uchiha Madara's mouth flashed a contemptuous smile, and said such a sentence as a compliment. But then Uchiha Madara looked at the land beside him, and almost a moment later, Black Setsu's figure directly emerged from the land. Black Setsu knelt in front of Uchiha Madara, and the emotions that have always been very restrained in front of Uchiha Madara were completely released at this moment. As if he saw his own reliance with a face full of guilt, Black Setsu looked at Uchiha Madara and said, "Madara-sama, I'm really sorry I failed to live up to your expectations. During the time when you temporarily left this world, he was still under my control at first. But as the power in his hands grew larger and larger, the desire in his heart was gradually ignited. My own strength is weak and there is no way to stop him. Even the Rinnegan that I snatched with great difficulty was given to him in order to appease him. Now there is only one Rinnegan left." For a long time in Uchiha Madara's mind, Black Setsu is an existence that he created through the Rinnegan's yin-yang release and the 6 paths power in the Rinnegan. Although Uchiha Madara has never trusted others so easily, he still has a certain trust in Black Setsu. After listening to Black Setsu's self-condemnation, Uchiha Madara didn't say much, but very indifferently said to Black Setsu, "It doesn't matter, the small animals in the family will be wild after the master leaves the house, let alone a selfish human being. Some of the actions were done and they were done. Give me the remaining Rinnegan first and I will arrange the next things freely." Stretching out his hand, Uchiha Madara obviously wanted Black Setsu to give him the remaining Rinnegan now. Black Setsu also took out the Rinnegan that he had hidden. Uchiha Madara reached out and directly took out the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan simulated by the Edo Tensei in his right eye and directly crushed it. With a gentle press of his right hand, the Rinnegan was placed in his right eye socket by Uchiha Madara. Chapter 635. Ugh. When Uchiha Madara put the Rinnegan in his eyes, he felt the resonance between the Rinnegan and his spirit and blood. The comfortable feeling of being full of strength made Uchiha Madara involuntarily open his mouth and make a moaning sound. In the ninja world there has always been a legend of the 3 dojutsu, and almost all the ninjas of the ninja allied forces have studied the various information that has been made public by the Akatsuki. The original leader of the Akatsuki, Pain, had the same eyes as the legendary sage of the 6 paths. But why did Uchiha Madara, who was already powerful and invincible, now directly put the Rinnegan in his eyes? Before, in order to catch the Rinnegan that Black Setsu handed to him, Uchiha Madara had already removed his Susanoo. Although he removed the Susanoo, there was no pressure on his body. But at this moment, Uchiha Madara was just standing there, and it already made everyone's heart full of pressure. Just when everyone stood still and didn't know what to do, 5 figures appeared in the center of the ninja allied forces. Not only Gaara, who has been cooperating with the ninja allied forces to fight against the Edo Tensei, but the Kage of the other 4 villages also appeared in the center of the ninja allied forces at the same time. For every ninja, the Kage of their village is the most worthy of their respect and admiration. It can be said that the Kage of every ninja village is the spiritual symbol of the village. When their spiritual symbol appears, no matter how critical the situation is, every ninja's heart is still a lot calmer. Spontaneously, the ninjas of the ninja allied forces directly made a path for the Kage of their village. This is the majesty of the Kage of the 5 great ninja villages, this is the respect of the Kage of the 5 great ninja villages. In a very short time, Uchiha Madara directly converged the powerful force in his body that was stimulated by the return of the Rinnegan. After converging the powerful force, Uchiha Madara also saw the scene in the ninja allied forces opposite him. The 5 Kages of the 5 great ninja villages slowly walked out of the human wall formed by the ninjas in their villages. In fact, the Kages of the 5 great ninja villages naturally have various ways to quickly reach the center of the battlefield. But at this moment, they did choose to walk to the center of the battlefield step by their own feet. This is not only to accumulate the morale of the ninja allied forces in this way, but also to accumulate momentum for the battle between themselves and Uchiha Madara. It was never an empty phrase to say that one could be as powerful as a tiger in one go. When he saw Uchiha Madara appear on the battlefield as the Kage, he was the only one in the battlefield. Gaara was ready to go to fight Madara himself to buy time to fight. The allied ninjas of the allied forces allied ninja army. But just when Gaara was ready to fight Uchiha Madara directly, Shikaku Nara, who was the staff officer of the allied forces ninja army, directly contacted Gaara through Yamanaka Inoichi's ability. After some persuasion from Shikaku Nara, Gaara also temporarily hid in the allied forces ninja army, and Kaze Watergate used the Flying Thunder God Jutsu to bring the rest of the Kages to the front line. When all the Kages of the 5 great ninja villages came to the front line of the battlefield, the allied forces ninja army had effectively responded to Uchiha Madara's ninjutsu under the command of Shikaku Nara. In order not to expose their existence, the 5 Kages also hid in the allied forces ninja army, waiting for an opportunity to directly attack Uchiha Madara. However, the situation was not as the 5 Kages expected. Uchiha Madara directly defeated the Kages summoned by the Edo Tensei, and he took the Rinnegan and put it into his eyes. The allied forces ninja army was in a slump, and now was not the time to think about how to cause enough damage to Uchiha Madara. After all, war still depends on the hearts of the people, and as one of the 5 great ninja villages, the Kages will definitely ignore such an important factor. After communicating with each other, the 5 Kages finally decided to come out in the most flamboyant way to let all the ninjas know that Uchiha Madara is not terrible. Ah, interesting. After so many years, most of the ninjas in the ninja world have forgotten the horror I once brought to them. Now there are a few juniors who are willing to stand up and dance in front of me to welcome my return. That's really good. Uchiha Madara's mouth made a soft laugh, and it seemed that the 5 Kages were just a small entertainment to welcome his return in the eyes of Uchiha Madara. Enjoy this unusual blood banquet. The corner of Uchiha Madara's mouth slightly raised, and a cruel smile flashed in the corner of his mouth. He has been away from the battlefield for many years for various reasons. Although Uchiha Madara has always thought that he is not a cold-blooded person, the strong smell of blood on the battlefield still stimulated Uchiha Madara's nerves to a certain extent. Forget it, let's just think of it as a small warm-up before implementing his plan. Let me give you a small gift first. Uchiha Madara looked at the Kage of the 5 great shinobi villages who were slowly walking towards him, and he began to form hand seals quickly. Fire release, Dragon Flame Song Technique. A high-level fire release was so easily released by Uchiha Madara, and 4 dragon-shaped flames directly rushed in the direction of the 5 Kages. They have seen the power of Uchiha Madara's fire release before. Although the ninjas of the allied ninja army felt a little more confident after seeing the 5 Kages at this moment, they still subconsciously dodged, and the powerful ninjutsu attacked the 5 Kages. Dragon Flame Song Technique itself is a powerful single-target ninjutsu. It attacks the enemy from 4 directions so that the enemy has no room to dodge. But now, Uchiha Madara's Dragon Flame Song Technique directly attacked the 5 Kages, and the scattered attacks naturally made the Dragon Flame Song Technique more likely to be dodged. As a Kage of a ninja village, no matter who it is, they are actually confident to escape from such an attack without any injury. But at this moment the 5 Kages can't directly dodge, otherwise the momentum that they have just accumulated will directly dissipate, and the overall morale of the allied ninja army will definitely plummet. The only thing the 5 Kages can do is to catch such a ninjutsu without caring about the consumption. Chapter 636. The 5 Kage exchanged glances, and A, who wasn't good at defense, directly stepped back and stood at the back of the 5. Terumi Mei, who was brought here by Minato using the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, walked to the front of the 5 people and quickly formed hand seals with her hands. Water Release, Water Dragon Chain Technique. The advanced ninjutsu of Water Dragon was directly used by Mei. Although Mei has always been famous for her 2 Kekkei Genkai, as the Mizukage of the Mist, her water release was also very powerful. After Mei finished the hand seals, 4 water dragons quickly condensed at the same time. Compared to the Dragon Flame Song Jutsu that only has 4 dragon heads, Mei's Water Dragon Bullet Jutsu is obviously larger. Unlike the Water Dragon Bullet Jutsu that only has a vague dragon shape, Mei's Water Dragon Bullet Jutsu almost completely outlines a very delicate dragon shape. Even the dragon scales and dragon whiskers on the dragon's body are extremely clear. This wasn't Terumi Mei trying to make her ninjutsu more gorgeous. There was a bit of gray-brown luster flowing in the gaps between the dragon scales and dragon whiskers. Obviously, Terumi Mei also injected part of her Kekkei Genkai lava release chakra into the water dragon chakra technique. Go! Mei controlled the 4 water dragons to directly rush toward the dragon flame song jutsu used by Uchiha Madara. The battle between water and fire directly broke out in mid-air. A large amount of water evaporated due to the high temperature, and the flame also weakened a bit because of the impact of the water flow. Looking at Mei's water dragon chain technique that included her Kekkei Genkai chakra, Uchiha Madara's eyes also showed some interest. After all, in the ninja world, Kekkei Genkai is actually very rare, but it doesn't mean that the types of Kekkei Genkai are very scarce. In every era, there are amazing people relying on their own talents. One by one special Kekkei Genkai was developed. Mei's 2 Kekkei Genkai were actually new Kekkei Genkai developed by herself. Seeing the power that he had never seen before, Uchiha Madara, who was obsessed with power, was quite excited. This Kekkei Genkai is a bit interesting. The fusion of water and earth chakra, and then it has sticky and corrosive properties and even a bit of magma properties. The attack power is good, but it's not enough. Murmuring slightly, Uchiha Madara also made a little evaluation of Mei's Kekkei Genkai. The feeling was like a martial arts master suddenly seeing a child unintentionally show an exquisite move in front of him, full of surprise. Uchiha Madara put his hands on his chest, and a huge chakra poured out of Uchiha Madara's body and directly injected into the Dragon Flame Song Jutsu that had been released, but was still a certain distance away from him. After casting such a ninjutsu, it was clear that after a period of time, he could continue to inject chakra into the released ninjutsu to maintain it. Such a technique simply violated the common sense of ninjutsu. With the help of Hashirama cells and the blood of the Uchiha clan in his body, coupled with the power of the 6 paths brought by the Rinnegan, Madara also went through a trial to master such a technique. The Dragon Flame Song Jutsu, which had been weakened by the impact of the water dragon, at this moment, after being supplemented by chakra of Uchiha Madara, it directly expanded 2 times. The Dragon Flame Song Jutsu directly broke through the blockade of the water dragon and rushed in the direction of the 5 Kages. Gaara and Watergate also stood up at the same time to replace Mei to resist the Dragon Flame Song Jutsu. Waving his hands, several sand ropes condensed into sand and rushed directly towards the 4 dragon heads. After touching the dragon heads, the sand ropes didn't tie the dragon heads. After all, although the dragon heads looked very solid, they were formed by flames after all, and the density of the physical resistance was not high. At the moment of contact with the dragon heads, the sand ropes directly melted and directly covered the dragon heads condensed by the Dragon Flame Song Jutsu. When the sand encountered high temperature, the silicon in it would show signs of melting due to the high temperature. At this moment, the dragon head cast by the dragon song was directly wrapped up by the slightly pale yellow glass solution formed by the melting sand. Gaara still continued to control the sand to rush towards the Dragon Flame Song Jutsu, and a large amount of glass solution directly penetrated the Dragon Flame Song Jutsu. After seeing that Gaara's ninjutsu had a certain effect, Watergate also used the ninjutsu he prepared. Wind Release, Wind Blast. Several wind blades were directly released from Watergate's hands. The wind blades condensed by chakra in Watergate's hands were like scalpels in the hands of a physician, accurately cutting towards the dragon heads wrapped in glass solution. The wind blades didn't directly cut the dragon heads in half. Instead, under the control of Watergate, they cut the dragon heads layer by layer. Almost in an instant, the huge dragon heads directly turned into pieces of orange-red crystals. Watching Watergate and Gaara cut the flames of the dragon heads, Raikage and Tsuchikage, who stood at the end, finally moved. Earth Release, Rock Golem Golem. Under Inoki's roar, a giant made of rock and earth directly stood up from the soil. The rock golem is actually an earth puppet created by using earth release ninjutsu, which can attack or defend under the control of the caster. However, under the control of Inoki, the size of the rock golem began to shrink slowly. Its originally hard body became more solid under the compression. Suddenly the rock golem burst open, transforming into an armor-like shape, directly covering the body of the 4th Raikage AI. Feeling the heavy armor on the surface of his body, Ace stimulated his Raitan chakra and directly attached it to his armor. After a short period of charging, a directly rushed out. Raitan ninjutsu, heavy current storm. Wrapped in the double armor of thunder and earth, AI rushed straight towards the location of the Dragon Flame Song Jutsu. Chapter 637. Although Uchiha Madara killed a Sandaime Reikage without his own consciousness with Susanoo, even so he was still the father of the fourth-generation Reikage. When he saw his father fall in front of him again, the surging emotions in his heart couldn't be suppressed. After suppressing his emotions to such an extent, AI finally had a chance to erupt. Naturally, he didn't hold back at all as he exerted all the strength he could. The lightning covered the rock armor, and the blue-white lightning and the gray-brown rock armor formed a different kind of beauty at this moment. At this moment, A's body was wrapped in lightning, like a violent beast that broke out of the cage, rushing directly toward the orange-red crystals created by Gaara and Watergate. Under the stimulation of Raitan chakra, A's speed almost reached the extreme. He leaped in midair, and although he didn't use any ninjutsu, a shadow of A appeared in front of each orange-red crystal. The orange-red crystals directly shattered into powder under the impact of A's elbow, scattering in the air like a cloud of fire. After seeing A directly eliminate Uchiha Madara's attack, the ninjas of the Ninja Allied Forces couldn't help but start cheering. The 5 Kages didn't actually use their most powerful strength, but by using various ninjutsu to cooperate with each other, they beautifully dispersed Uchiha Madara's attack directly, letting the ninjas of the Ninja Allied Forces fully see the power of the 5 Kages when they cooperate together. This is the shadow of the 5 great ninja villages, and this is the pride of every ninja village. No matter how powerful the Akatsuki is, no matter how unstoppable Uchiha Madara is, we are not afraid. Because our Kages are standing with us and our Kages are fighting alongside us. Humans are such unrealistic creatures. When one's heart was satisfied, when one's soul found a pillar of support, one by one, they would lose their so-called rational judgment and become brave and fearless. Mighty! 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 Shouts came out from the Ninja Allied Forces. At first it was just a scattered shout, but slowly such shouts gradually became louder. The shouts of mighty were like a mountain flood, out of control and directly rushed to the sky. At this moment the Ninja Allied Forces were like a flame, directly dispersing the coldness on the battlefield. Listening to the shouts from the Ninja Allied Forces, the 5 Kages standing among the many ninjas were slightly filled with pride at this moment. Although he used a method that consumes a lot of energy to fight Madara, it still has a good effect, isn't it? Uchiha Madara, we 5 Kages are here and we will fight with you. No matter how strong you are, we won't take a step back. As long as we have a breath, the future of the ninja world will never dissipate. Your plan will not succeed in the end. Minato looked at Uchiha Madara, who was standing on the opposite side and watching the 5 of them fight against the dragon's release Song Jutsu coldly. He used chakra to amplify his voice and directly said to Madara, Uchiha. Hearing the righteous voice of Watergate, the ninjas of the Ninja Allied Forces were also excited at this moment. Yes, we are not only fighting for ourselves. We are fighting so hard for nothing else, we are fighting for the future of the shinobi world so that our world will not become a fake playground. Looking at the Ninja Allied Forces and Watergate, Uchiha Madara still looked at them with interest. At the level of Uchiha Madara, in fact the so-called number advantage is not so important. It can be said that as long as Uchiha Madara is willing, no one can stop Uchiha Madara from slaughtering the Ninja Allied Forces. Now, Uchiha Madara is actually just stalling for time. Although Uchiha Obito has done a lot of little things after Madara left the world, but Madara can be sure that Uchiha Obito himself actually wants to create a virtual world through the Jubi. As long as Uchiha Obito's demand doesn't disappear, then Uchiha Madara doesn't have to be impatient at all. Since there was still plenty of time and he didn't have anything urgent to do, why not have some fun with these juniors and exercise his muscles and bones? Wheel grave, border prison. Silently, Uchiha Madara displayed the unique skill of his Rinnegan. Because his current Rinnegan is not complete, and his body is also a fake body simulated by the Edo Tensei, so he can summon 4 shadows that don't exist in the real dimension, but now he can only summon 1 shadow, but this shadow has the strength of Uchiha Madara himself. Putting such a shadow aside, Uchiha Madara decided to use it as a trump card to decide the outcome of the battle. Susanoo. After reactivating Susanoo, with the support of Rinnegan, Susanoo has obviously become even more powerful. This time, Madara and Susanoo printed hand seals at the same time again, but the difference is that the hand seals made by Madara and Susanoo were completely different. Uchiha Madara and Susanoo seemed to have reached an inexplicable resonance at this moment, and a strong gravitational force was released directly from the bodies of Uchiha Madara and Susanoo, and it seemed to be pulling something straight into the sky. Almost after a moment, the ninja allied forces who had just cheered up directly saw a scene like a heavenly punishment. Two huge meteorites with a diameter of more than 100 meters rushed directly from the sky. Because of the extremely fast speed, the meteorites in the air quickly rubbed against each other, and there were flames attached to the meteorites. Is this still a technique that can be used by humans? Almost everyone began to have such a question in their hearts. In everyone's cognition, such a scale of ninjutsu is simply impossible to exist. The 5 Kage, who originally hoped to gain some possibility of victory by boosting the morale of the ninjas and the ninja allied forces, at this moment, their faces were gloomy. The current situation is no longer something that they can resist. Now all they can do is to protect the ninjas and the ninja allied forces as much as possible. They must not let them lose a lot of people under such an attack. Chapter 638. Tengai Season. Like a whisper, Uchiha Madara said the name of such a move that was almost like a divine punishment. Obviously it was just a subtle sound, but it sounded like it was in everyone's ears so that everyone could hear such a whisper carefully. After the 5 Kages looked at each other, they quickly dispersed, and the ninjas of the ninja allied forces also spontaneously gathered, and each of them cast a variety of ninjutsu to defend against such an impact. Watergate didn't go directly to the ninja allied forces to help people defend, but he used the shadow clone jutsu to summon 2 shadow clones. He took out 4 special kunai from the ninja bag on his back, and after giving 2 of them to his shadow clone jutsu, Watergate didn't pay attention to the 2 shadow clones who quickly used the body flicker jutsu to escape. He directly threw the special kunai in his left and right hands directly at the 2 huge meteorites summoned by Tengai Season. Although the meteorites were surrounded by strong airflow when they fell, there was still no way to stop Watergate's special kunai that became fast and full of sharpness after injecting a lot of chakra. Compared to the huge size of the meteorites, the 2 special kunai were so small, but the effect of the 2 special kunai was beyond imagination. At the moment of contact with the meteorites, the huge chakra in the special kunai directly burst out, like a giant net, directly wrapped the 2 huge meteorites in it. Flying Thunder God. Feeling that his 2 shadow clones have reached the designated position, he directly released the ninjutsu. Watergate made a hand seal, condensed his chakra, and directly cast his signature spacetime ninjutsu. Under the huge explosion of light, the bodies of the 2 huge meteorites were slightly distorted. After feeling Watergate's spacetime ninjutsu, Uchiha Madara's eyes became slightly cold. You think too lightly. Originally, Uchiha Madara was going to let the 2 meteorites fall directly into the ninja allied forces in a freefall manner, and directly clear the noisy ants in the ninja allied forces, but now Watergate wants to use a spacetime ninjutsu to directly transfer his ninjutsu away? His left eye opened wide and almost pushed the power in his eyes to the extreme. The meteorite summoned by the Tengai has a special connection with Uchiha Madara. After Uchiha Madara released his power, a huge force also broke out in the meteorite. The power of Rinnegan and the space ninjutsu used by Watergate confronted each other. Compared to the power of Rinnegan, Watergate's ninjutsu was naturally at a disadvantage. Although he was hindered by Uchiha Madara, Watergate's Flying Thunder God was still displayed. However, unlike Watergate's expectations, Flying Thunder God didn't directly transmit the 2 huge meteorites to the Flying Thunder God coordinates set by his 2 shadow clones, but there was a certain deviation. The ninjas in the outer part of the ninja allied forces were still affected by the meteorite attack, and hundreds of ninjas directly lost their lives under the meteorite attack. Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke also arrived at the cloud village occupied by Akatsuki at this moment. With the connection between himself and Kabuto, Itachi Uchiha also confirmed the location of Kabuto. Along the way, Uchiha Sasuke also briefly described the current situation of the battlefield to his brother. After hearing that the White Zetsu unit was lost and the main enemy facing the ninja allied forces was the Edo Tensei unit, his decision to defeat Kabuto became more firm. Sasuke, this time, fight side by side with me. Hearing Itachi's words, Sasuke also nodded firmly. For the first and last time he and his brother will fight together. Such an opportunity must be grasped. Standing at the door of Kabuto's research room, Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke tacitly made hand seals at the same time. The same hand seals were quickly completed in the hands of Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke. Katan, Great Fireball Technique. Katan, Great Fireball Technique. Two huge fireballs directly rushed out of Sasuke and Itachi's mouth. The two huge fireballs directly hit the wooden door, and the scorching fireballs directly burned through the wooden door. Ignoring the heat of the flames, Uchiha Sasuke and Itachi Uchiha directly cast their Susanoo, summoning red and purple ribs directly to protect themselves. Uchiha Sasuke and Itachi Uchiha rushed into Kabuto's research room at the same time. "I've been waiting for you two for a long time." In the room, Kabuto's slightly hoarse voice, which had become very similar to Orochimaru's, sounded directly. After Itachi Uchiha got out of his control, Kabuto already knew that Itachi would find him with his ability. But because he was fully focused on controlling Uchiha Madara, Kabuto didn't have time to care about Itachi's actions. But now in the battlefield there was actually no need for Kabuto's control. Uchiha Madara was already fighting with the ninja allied forces, and the other Edo Tensei became insignificant compared to Uchiha Madara's power. Kabuto directly reduced his control of those Edo Tensei to the minimum and began to prepare for the arrival of Itachi Uchiha. Kabuto stretched out his hand under his loose robe and made hand seals to cast ninjutsu. At the same time, a nearly transparent snake-shaped energy appeared on Kabuto's body. Senjutsu, White Surge Technique. The senjutsu energy on Kabuto's body immediately spread to the surrounding air after the completion of the ninjutsu. Under the control of the senjutsu energy, the surrounding air began to vibrate at a high frequency. The vibration of the air also made everything in it vibrate. The most obvious is that some small gravel on the ground has turned into fine powder at this moment. Although his body is wrapped in Susanoo's defense, this kind of ninjutsu attack is different from physical attack or ninjutsu attack. Uchiha Sasuke and Itachi Uchiha at this moment heard a very harsh buzzing sound in their ears, and even their bodies were a little out of control. Similarly, the control of chakra also became difficult to master, and the rib defense formed by Susanoo also became unstable at this moment. Chapter 639. White Stimulus itself is a ninjutsu that is different from ordinary ninjutsu that controls elements. It directly affects the human body and makes people lose their combat ability. In the face of such a ninjutsu, naturally, it can't be resisted by conventional means. But White Stimulus Jutsu isn't really invincible, although his brain was disturbed at this moment, and his body wasn't so obedient. But at this moment, Kabuto also stood in place and didn't attack in the direction of Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke. Instead, he stood in place and formed hand seals to maintain such a ninjutsu. Yes, although White Stimulus Jutsu is powerful, it doesn't distinguish between friend and foe. Although Yakushi Kabuto himself is the caster of White Stimulation Jutsu, if Yakushi Kabuto also stepped into the range of White Stimulation Jutsu, then he will also be affected by White Stimulation Jutsu like Sasuke and Itachi. Compared to Sasuke and Itachi, Kabuto has been relying on Senjutsu Chakra to barely protect himself from Orochimaru's overbearing variant chakra, so he will definitely fall into an extremely dangerous situation. Originally, Itachi Uchiha actually prepared to use his genjutsu to confuse Kabuto a certain extent when he entered the door, providing a certain advantage for himself and Sasuke. But the moment he entered the room, Itachi keenly observed that Kabuto's eyes were covered with a layer of gray keratin. At this moment, Kabuto seems to have given up his vision to resist the possible genjutsu attack. Under the attack of White Stimulus Jutsu, Uchiha Sasuke and Itachi Uchiha also gradually lost their physical strength. As a relatively fragile Edo Tensei, Itachi Uchiha was the first to fall to the ground. Bang! The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground clearly echoed in Kabuto's laboratory, and shortly after Itachi Uchiha fell, his younger brother Uchiha Sasuke also fell straight to the ground like Itachi. Seeing Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke directly lost their combat ability and fell to the ground, Kabuto didn't relax at all. Instead, he still released the natural energy in his body and continued to launch White Stimulus Jutsu. After launching it again for a few minutes, Kabuto finally confirmed that Uchiha Sasuke and Itachi Uchiha have lost their combat ability. He finally released his hand seals, and walked slowly towards the place where Uchiha Sasuke and Itachi Uchiha fell to the ground with a smile on his face. Kabuto didn't doubt whether his White Stimulus Jutsu really caused enough damage to Uchiha Sasuke and Itachi Uchiha. As a ninja who has been immersed in medical ninjutsu for many years and is also very talented, Kabuto's White Stimulus Jutsu developed by combining natural energy is a perfect demonstration of his understanding of medical ninjutsu. As long as the person standing on the opposite side is a living creature with hearing, they will definitely be affected by white stimulus jutsu, and it is very likely that they will suffer irreversible damage. Ignoring Sasuke, who fell to the ground, Kabuto walked directly in the direction of Itachi Uchiha. Since Itachi Uchiha got rid of his control for some reason that he didn't understand, then he can set up a seal again and turn Itachi Uchiha into a marionette again. After all, Itachi Uchiha has a pair of powerful Manjikyu Sharingan, isn't it? Kabuto walked in front of Itachi Uchiha and slowly squatted down. He made a few hand seals, and stretched out his right hand to press Itachi Uchiha's head. Just when Kabuto's palm was about to touch Itachi Uchiha's head, Itachi Uchiha's body suddenly became distorted, and the originally very real body suddenly became illusory, and the humanoid body turned into a black flame in an instant. Amaterasu. Obviously, such a powerful Manjikyu Sharingan technique directly appeared in front of Yakushi Kabuto, but Yakushi Kabuto's eyes didn't show the slightest surprise. Instead, he had expected it. That's right, from the moment Itachi Uchiha fell to the ground, everything fell into the illusion created by Itachi Uchiha for Kabuto. The so-called genjutsu is to attack the enemy's five senses and make them fall into a world of illusion. Shape, sound, smell, taste, touch, these are the target of genjutsu. In general, ninjas who use genjutsu use their own eyes to cast genjutsu, which is the so-called shape. But genjutsu itself has a great possibility in application. As a person who is proficient in genjutsu and uses genjutsu as his regular combat mode, Itachi naturally won't stand still and only know how to study shape as an attack mode. When Itachi Uchiha fell to the ground, the sound he made was actually the attack mode of sound in genjutsu. Itachi Uchiha fell to the ground, but after falling to the ground, Itachi Uchiha didn't lose his consciousness. Instead, he directly used his own genjutsu. This genjutsu is very rough, but it is likely to have a miraculous effect on Kabuto, who seems to be in a somewhat abnormal mental state. To be honest, at the beginning, Kabuto did fall for it, but when he continued to use white stimulus jutsu to attack Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke, Kabuto still found a flaw in genjutsu cast by Itachi. As a person who is proficient in medical ninjutsu, Kabuto knows very well that even if a person loses his consciousness, this person's body will still make some stress reactions. But when Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke fell to the ground, they were continuously attacked by white stimulus jutsu, but still didn't show any stress reaction. Such a situation is not a characteristic of a living body at all. However, Kabuto didn't directly expose Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke's little trick, and he didn't even take the initiative to remove the genjutsu. Instead, he went directly to the fake Itachi Uchiha, wanting to see how Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke were going to fight against him. But in the end, they still have to use the Uchiha clan's dojutsu? It really made Kabuto a bit disappointed. Amaterasu, second layer. Uchiha Sasuke and Itachi Uchiha, who were covered by genjutsu, cast Mangekyo Jutsu at the same time, but the Amaterasu flame itself wasn't fast, so Uchiha Sasuke also cast his own Mangekyo Jutsu, Katan, Earth's Life. The Amaterasu flame quickly formed several fire snakes under the effect of Katan, and rushed directly in the direction of Kabuto. Chapter 640. For a long time, whether it was Uchiha Sasuke, who had been in contact with Kabuto under Orochimaru for many years, or Itachi Uchiha, who was summoned by Kabuto using Edo Tensei, although they attached great importance to Kabuto's own wisdom and planning, to be honest, neither of them actually regarded Kabuto as a strong person. Even though he had just entered Sage mode and used the white stimulus technique, it was still a strange technique. If it really comes to a head-on confrontation, Kabuto will definitely not be his opponent. This is the common understanding of Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke towards Kabuto, but is Kabuto really that weak? Perhaps Kabuto, who was a relatively technical ninja under Orochimaru's deliberate training, didn't have much attack ability, but after Orochimaru's death, Kabuto can be said to have inherited almost all of Orochimaru's ninjutsu research and various transformation techniques. And Kabuto even successfully practiced Sage mode, which even Orochimaru didn't complete, and the degree of completion was very high. Today's Kabuto can't be compared to the past. But at this moment, Uchiha Sasuke and Itachi Uchiha have fallen into their own habitual thinking at this moment, and they didn't jump out of such a strange circle at all. Kabuto. Seeing that the fire snake controlled by Kagetsuchi had almost completely surrounded Kabuto, Uchiha Sasuke said to Kabuto with a bit of ruthlessness. Sasuke originally had a relatively hostile attitude towards Kabuto. After all, when Sasuke trained under Orochimaru, Kabuto did a lot of things to him. Although Sasuke didn't care so much about such a small trick, it was still inevitable that he had a lot of rejection towards Kabuto. And this time what really ignited the anger in Sasuke's heart was not anything else, but Kabuto's use of the forbidden jutsu, Edo Tensei, to summon his brother back to the ninja world to fight. At this moment, Sasuke was not controlled by his hatred, but his disgust for Kabuto was even more turbulent. And this is the first and last time he will fight side by side with his brother. Uchiha Sasuke also hopes that he can clean up Yakushi Kabuto so that his brother can believe that he has fully grown up and doesn't need him to worry about him anymore. Just as the black fire snake was about to completely envelop Medicine Master's pocket, Medicine Master's pocket's hands began to form seals. Immortal technique, lifeless reincarnation. To give life to and control over lifeless inorganic matter. The soil under Kabuto's feet and the various equipment in the laboratory melted the moment Kabuto used his ninjutsu. In an instant, these things turned into a gray liquid mixed with various materials. Gently moving his finger, the gray liquid was like an obedient pet, moving nimbly under the control of Pharmacist's pocket. The gray liquid directly wrapped around Kabuto's body. The Amaterasu flame, which was supposed to burn everything, was difficult to burn after coming into contact with the gray liquid. Seeing that the Amaterasu flame didn't work directly, Uchiha Sasuke also used Katan Egikudo to turn the snake-like Amaterasu flame directly into a ring of fire directly around Kabuto's body. Obviously, Uchiha Sasuke hoped that he could use the high-speed rotating ring of fire to directly break the gray liquid around Kabuto's body and attack Kabuto, who was hidden inside. Sasuke's idea was indeed correct. After all, no matter how difficult it was to burn, the gray liquid wrapped around Kabuto's body was a liquid. As long as it was a liquid, its physical defensibility was not comparable to a solid. However, Kabuto used lifeless reincarnation not only to protect his body, but also to rely on lifeless reincarnation to deal with the Amaterasu flame. The gray liquid around Kabuto's body directly broke from the middle, like a blooming flower, directly wrapped the Amaterasu ring of fire around his body. And the gray liquid that was originally in contact with Kabuto's body also revealed its face at this moment. A blood-colored talisman that seemed to be written with blood floated on the gray liquid as if it was alive. Fire seal technique. A seal technique that wasn't difficult was directly written by Kabuto on the gray liquid. Fire seal technique was a seal that specialized in resisting fire element. Although Amaterasu was very powerful, after all, it was also a kind of flame. Fire seal technique was the nemesis of all flames. When the ring of fire formed by the Amaterasu flame was wrapped in the gray liquid, Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke had already lost the ability to control the Amaterasu flame. Almost at the same time, Uchiha Sasuke and Itachi Uchiha used Susanoo at the same time. This time, Itachi and Sasuke didn't use the simple version of Susanoo with only skeleton. Whether it was Itachi or Sasuke, they used their Sharingan ability to the highest level. Sasuke's complete Susanoo and Itachi's third form Susanoo both appeared in front of Kabuto. Sasuke and Itachi controlled Susanoo with a long sword in one hand and Yasaka no Magatama in the other. Itachi and Sasuke looked at each other, and at the same time, they threw the burning chakra flame in their hands directly in the direction of Yakushi Kabuto. Seeing such two huge attacks coming towards him, Kabuto didn't dare to slack off. Lifeless reincarnation. After injecting more Senjutsu chakra, the gray substance controlled by lifeless reincarnation became more tenacious, directly like a wall, directly defending Kabuto behind it. Two Yasaka's Magatama burning with chakra flames were directly inserted into the wall created by Yakushi's pocket using inorganic reincarnation. Boom, boom, boom. Continuous sounds of explosions appeared at the place where the Yasaka's Magatama and the inorganic reincarnation's wall met. The powerful impact made it difficult for Yakushi's pocket to resist. He was directly sent flying by the huge impact and quickly retreated in the air. From Kabuto's loose robe, a white snake about the thickness of a human head suddenly stretched out. The white snake directly stuck its head on the ground, and with the help of the white snake, Kabuto also adjusted his body, and directly stood on the ground with a flip in the air. Chapter 641. When Kabuto adjusted his body with the help of the white snake extending from his abdomen, Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke had already controlled their Susanoo to come in front of Kabuto. The red Susanoo held the Totsuka sword, and the black Amaterasu flame wrapped around the Totsuka sword. The blue Susanoo held the blue long sword, and the blue and white lightning wrapped around the long sword. Susanoo, double god thunder. Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke shouted the name of the move at the same time, and the red and blue Susanoo slashed the long sword in their hands towards Kabuto's body at the same time. The two Susanoo, as tall as a mountain, each held the weapon in their hands and slashed towards Kabuto's direction. When the weapon was waved, it brought a huge gust of wind and a harsh sound of wind breaking. After Kabuto successfully practiced Sage Mode, his physical fitness and comprehensive strength have been greatly improved. But even if Kabuto's strength has been greatly improved, it was still difficult to resist Susanoo after Mangekyou Sharingan was pushed to the extreme. Susanoo was a powerful ninjutsu that was enough to break a mountain with a casual blow. Kabuto pushed Senjutsu chakra to the extreme, and a large amount of soil and various substances were all mixed together. Under the control of Senjutsu, inorganic reincarnation, these substances blocked the path of Sasuke and Itachi's attack. However, Kabuto still underestimated the power of Susanoo cast by Mangekyou Sharingan. Although the weapon in Susanoo's hand was made of chakra, its destructive power could easily break gold and jade. The gray liquid substance controlled by inorganic reincarnation didn't play the slightest role in front of Susanoo. Itachi Uchiha and Uchiha Sasuke just waved their weapons and easily broke the gray liquid substance controlled by inorganic reincarnation. The red and blue Susanoo quickly approached Yakushi Kabuto, but the purpose of Sasuke and Itachi coming here this time was not to kill Yakushi Kabuto directly, but to let Yakushi Kabuto remove the Edo Tensei Jutsu that had been cast. After all, Edo Tensei is not a ninjutsu that can be dispelled by killing the caster. The Totsuka sword and chakra long blade in Susanoo's hands were slightly deflected, and the two weapons didn't directly hit Yakushi's pocket. Instead, they crossed left and right, forming a cross shape, locking Yakushi's pocket in it. Amaterasu flames and blue-white lightning penetrated Kabuto's body at the same time, but under the deliberate control of Itachi and Sasuke, they only wandered in Kabuto's veins, preventing him from using ninjutsu. Seeing that Yakushi's pocket had been completely restrained, Uchiha Sasuke and Itachi Uchiha looked at each other. Looking at Sasuke with the eternal Mangekyo pattern in his eyes, Itachi couldn't help but smile a little. Seeing the gentle smile on Itachi's face, Sasuke's heart couldn't help but tighten. Sasuke knew that the moment of separation between him and his brother had actually come again. When the feelings between people reached a certain level, there was no need for so many words to express one's inner feelings. After the Uchiha brothers looked at each other, they already knew each other's intentions. After this battle, there will be no more days for them to be separated. Maybe Itachi will reincarnate again, but Sasuke will still struggle to survive in such a chaotic place like the ninja world. Itachi Uchiha's body almost instantly turned into a few crows and disappeared, but because Itachi didn't stop his eye power output to Susanoo, Susanoo could still maintain its existence in front of him. A few crows suddenly appeared beside Yakushi pocket and condensed into Itachi Uchiha's figure. He walked in front of Yakushi pocket and stretched out his hand to lift Yakushi pocket's lowered head. At this moment, Yakushi pocket's eyes were still attached with a layer of gray film that was close to keratin. Yakushi pocket has always been an extremely smart person. The reason why the Uchiha brothers came to him was to let him remove the Edo Tensei Jutsu that he used and create an opportunity for the ninja allied forces to win. But Yakushi pocket firmly believed that he would not be persuaded by the Uchiha brothers no matter what, so the only way for Sasuke and Itachi to remove the Edo Tensei Jutsu is for Itachi Uchiha to use his powerful genjutsu to control him. Although there are many types of genjutsu, the genjutsu cast by the eyes is the most powerful, so even if Yakushi pocket is now under control, he still maintains the keratin in his eyes to defend against Itachi Uchiha's genjutsu attack. Yakushi pocket's eyes have keratin that can block genjutsu, but the Mangekyo pattern in Itachi Uchiha's left eye rotated at high speed. Izanami. There are two powerful forbidden techniques in the Uchiha clan. One is Izanagi, which can change fate, and the other is Izanami. Izanagi mainly works in reality while Izanami mainly works in the spirit. At this moment, Itachi Uchiha forcibly pulled Yakushi pocket's spirit into Yakushi pocket's own memory, so that Yakushi pocket began to loop infinitely in his own memory. Only when certain conditions are completed can Yakushi pocket break free from Izanami. Yakushi pocket's spirit has completely infiltrated into his own spiritual world, and his body, which has lost control, is naturally directly under Itachi Uchiha's control. Itachi Uchiha was about to directly control Yakushi pocket to release Susanoo, but Sasuke suddenly released his Susanoo and jumped in front of his brother. Sasuke, haven't you made up your mind yet? Itachi was very clear about Sasuke's feelings for him. When he saw Sasuke in front of him, he thought that Sasuke was going to stop him from releasing Edo Tensei Jutsu. Hearing his brother's words, Sasuke also understood that his brother might have misunderstood something, so he immediately said, "Don't worry, since I have decided to come here with you, brother, of course I am ready. I stopped you because I still have something to do." Taking a few steps forward, Sasuke came in front of Yakushi Pocket, who had completely lost his self-consciousness. He made a few unconventional hand seals in his hand, and then put his hand on Yakushi Pocket's abdomen. After sensing for a while as if he found something, the hand on Yakushi Pocket's abdomen grabbed hard, and chakra with a cold breath was directly pulled out of Yakushi Pocket's abdomen by Sasuke. Chapter 642. When Itachi saw Sasuke directly pull out such a cold aura from Kabuto's abdomen with a strange ninjutsu, he immediately recognized the owner of this cold aura. Orochimaru? I didn't expect Orochimaru to use all kinds of methods to survive until now. Yes, what Uchiha Sasuke pulled out of Kabuto's body at this moment was naturally Orochimaru's chakra in Kabuto's body. And this chakra actually contains Orochimaru's will. As long as it meets a suitable body, Orochimaru is likely to directly resurrect with his highly invasive chakra. Yes, this is Orochimaru's chakra. Looking at Itachi, Sasuke slowly raised the chakra in his hand, which had now become like a snake, as if he wanted to let his brother see what it was. I don't need to remind you, you should also know what kind of dangerous existence Orochimaru is. Even if I join forces with you, although we can defeat Orochimaru, it's not easy to eliminate such a troublesome existence. Have you thought about the cause and effect of this matter? As a former wood-leaf ninja who had some conflicts with Orochimaru in Akatsuki, Sasuke actually knew Orochimaru very well. How dangerous and unscrupulous Orochimaru was, Itachi was also very clear in his heart. I naturally considered the danger of Orochimaru, but now the ninja world needs people like Orochimaru who are familiar with all kinds of secrets of the ninja world. After all, whether it's Jubi or Uchiha Madara, they are some strange existences for us. When I was under Orochimaru, I saw some records of the legends of the ninja world from some of Orochimaru's bookshelves that were open to me more than once. If we can get Orochimaru to stand in our camp, it will undoubtedly greatly increase the chances of the ninja allied forces winning. It's precisely because I don't have much confidence in Orochimaru's loyalty that I asked Oniai-san not to rush to remove the ninjutsu, so that if Orochimaru attacks us, we can quickly suppress or even seal him. Hearing Sasuke's logical words, Itachi finally understood that all of Sasuke's actions at the moment were planned in advance. Since Sasuke has made plans, all he needs to do is to believe in his brother. Okay, you resurrect Orochimaru first, I will keep an eye on him. If things go wrong, I will immediately seal Orochimaru with Totsuka sword. Hearing Itachi's words, Sasuke also nodded his head, and then took out a scroll from his arms. Tearing open the scroll with one hand, a white body appeared on the ground amidst the rising smoke. With a slightly pale complexion and a slightly different body structure from ordinary people, this body sealed in the scroll by Sasuke is obviously a white Zetsu clone. The white Zetsu clone itself is very similar to Senju Takuma in terms of characteristics. There is a huge amount of life energy hidden inside the body of the clone, and these clones do not have self-consciousness, and there will be no spiritual counterattack. He directly pressed the chakra in his hand with Orochimaru's will on the body of the white Zetsu clone. Like dry soil suddenly absorbing water, Orochimaru's Zenogenic chakra directly drilled into the body of the white Zetsu clone. Almost visible to the naked eye, the physical characteristics of the white Zetsu clone began to change greatly. The original wooden face became more and more like Orochimaru's face. Long black hair, purple eyeshadow, golden vertical pupils and pale skin. Just looking at his face made people feel a little cold in their hearts. Orochimaru, since you have already woken up, why are you still lying on the ground pretending to be dead? Do you think your little trick can hide from the gaze of 2 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan? Looking at Orochimaru, Itachi Uchiha said coldly. Yes, at the moment when the body of the white Zetsu clone completed the transformation, in fact Orochimaru's own consciousness had already taken control of the body, but maybe because Sasuke and Itachi were here, or he was slowly accepting the memories he experienced when he was integrated into Kabuto's body, Orochimaru didn't stand up. Itachi, I remember you are not such an impatient person. Itachi, who has always been calm, is now anxious, but Sasuke, who is anxious, now looks calm. With a slightly playful look, Orochimaru's eyes drifted from Sasuke and Itachi's bodies. Could it be that the Edo Tensei I developed can also make a person's personality obvious? This is an interesting discovery. Seeing some of Itachi's physical characteristics and Kabuto lying on the ground, Orochimaru understood the general cause and effect of the matter. The person who made him jealous at the beginning is now dead, but he is living well in the shinobi world at this moment. Even because of the refining of the Senjutsu chakra in Kabuto's body, his soul that had problems for so many years due to the use of the tensei has been repaired a lot. Humph. Seeing that Orochimaru could actually make fun of him, Itachi knew that the plan of joining forces with Orochimaru actually has a possibility of success, so he didn't pay attention to Orochimaru's words and directly turned his body, giving Orochimaru to his younger brother. Presumably, with your intelligence and the memories you received from Kabuto, you should have already understood why I resurrected you, right? Sasuke didn't say anything to Orochimaru, but directly said to Orochimaru. This feeling was like going to a store to buy something. One hand exchanged money, and the other hand delivered the goods. I resurrected you and you helped me achieve my goal. Resurrecting Orochimaru is the money, prepared by Sasuke, and Orochimaru's temporary cooperation is the goods Sasuke wants to buy with the money. Of course. I am willing to help you bring victory to the ninja allied forces. Orochimaru smiled at Sasuke and slowly cast his eyes to Kabuto, who fell on the ground. I have many goals in my life. Although I am in a half-dead state during this time, Kabuto still helped me achieve many of my plans intentionally or unintentionally. As for the results of these plans, to be honest, they are not ideal. Since these plans have flaws, then I don't need to continue to be obsessed with these plans. Now, I am more concerned about what you and Nangongja can turn this shinobi world into. Chapter 643. He didn't know if it was because his soul was nourished by natural energy in Kabuto's body, or it was really like what Orochimaru said, almost all his pursuits were realized by Kabuto. The current Orochimaru was obviously calmer than his previous crazy and sinister personality. But these things were no longer what Sasuke cared about the most, because he had now controlled Kabuto to stand up. Looking at Kabuto standing beside Itachi like a puppet, Sasuke's eyes couldn't help but show deep sadness. Who is heartless? Especially when his closest brother is going to leave him again. Such a situation made it difficult for Sasuke's heart to calm down. Even if he was prepared when this moment really came, Sasuke still couldn't calm himself down completely. Itachi didn't speak, but silently controlled Kabuto to start printing slowly. He was a dead person. Since he was already dead, he shouldn't stay in the world and add unnecessary worries to the people who were still alive. As for whether he wanted to stay or not, to be honest, Itachi really didn't have an answer. As a person who can sacrifice his entire family for the benefit of the village, in Itachi's heart, the public will always be more than his own selfishness. Edo Tensei, release. Itachi and Kabuto shouted the name of the ninjutsu at the same time, and a strange chakra wave was emitted from Kabuto's body almost instantly. Whether it was Itachi Uchiha who was close at hand, or the Edo Tensei who were fighting with the ninja allied forces in various parts of the battlefield at this moment, their bodies began to emit a white luster. Those who had no choice but to fight against the ninja allied forces under Kabuto's control, at this moment, their faces were filled with a sense of relief as they slowly turned into ashes. Slowly taking a few steps forward, Itachi came in front of Sasuke. The smile on his face was so soft, as if he deliberately hoped that his smile could disintegrate the sadness in Sasuke's heart. He gently put his finger on Sasuke's forehead, just like when Sasuke was young. Sasuke, now you have become a man who can stand on both sides of the earth. This time I finally have a chance to say goodbye to you, but it seems that there is not so much to say. After all, what I wanted to say, Sasuke was now fully aware of it. Take good care of them and remember one thing. Looking at Sasuke in front of him, who obviously couldn't control his emotions and became teary, Itachi's eyes narrowed slightly and turned into a half-moon shape, and said in the most gentle tone in his life, I will love you forever, my dear little brother. After saying the last sentence, Itachi's body was completely covered by the light, just like the Edo Tensei on the battlefield. He turned into a pile of ashes. As a qualified ninja, controlling one's emotions is a compulsory course in itself. Sasuke stood there looking at the ashes on the ground. After a little silence, he put away the tears in his eyes and the sadness in his heart. Now is not the time to be sad, is it? Turning around, Sasuke looked at Orochimaru, who was looking at him with a look of observation, and then said to Orochimaru, Do you have any plans? It's been so long, it should be enough for you to absorb all the memories from Kabuto. Looking at Sasuke's businesslike appearance, the smile in Orochimaru's eyes became more intense. In Orochimaru's view, Sasuke at this moment was actually trying his best to pull himself away from the sadness of his brother's departure. Such stubbornness and strength were really interesting in Orochimaru's view. But since Sasuke had asked him, Orochimaru naturally wouldn't continue to be silent, so he said to Sasuke, "Of course Akatsuki's plan is really not small. Since they want to resurrect a monster like Jubi that can resist the whole world, then we should naturally take all the power we can control in our own hands, right? I need you to help me go to Woodleaf Village first and let me see two long-lost friends." Hearing Orochimaru's words, Sasuke didn't hesitate at all. He stood directly beside Orochimaru and summoned Susanoo, enveloping Orochimaru in Susanoo, and flew directly in the direction of Woodleaf Village. It has to be said that although Susanoo is still an offensive ninjutsu in essence, Susanoo's ability is really omnipotent. Even if it's used to travel, it's very fast. Ordinary ninja may take several days without sleep to reach Woodleaf Village from the Land of Lightning where the Fourth Shinobi World War is, but at this moment, Sasuke and Orochimaru have already arrived in Woodleaf Village in less than 2 hours under Susanoo's flight. Although it's now the Fourth Shinobi World War, there is still a considerable amount of power left in Woodleaf to prevent Akatsuki from attacking their village like before. The arrival of Sasuke riding Susanoo naturally attracted the attention of many of the remaining ninjas. These remaining ninjas almost pushed the defense barrier of Woodleaf Village to the limit, but Sasuke didn't slow down his speed at all. Instead, he directly controlled Susanoo to pull out the chakra long blade from his waist and slash directly on the barrier. The powerful defense barrier was fragile in front of Susanoo's long blade. Under Orochimaru's guidance, Sasuke directly controlled Susanoo to descend in front of Tsunade and Jiraiya's residence. A large number of remaining ninjas chased Sasuke and Orochimaru, who forcibly broke through the barrier, to the residence where Tsunade and Jiraiya lived. From beginning to end, Orochimaru didn't hide his chakra aura at all. Tsunade, who lived in the courtyard, naturally noticed that her former companion who betrayed the village came here. Konoha's shinobi gathered outside the courtyard were already preparing their ninjutsu, waiting for the Susanoo to make a move. Tsunade also opened the gate of her courtyard and walked out. She looked straight at Orochimaru who was wrapped in Susanoo. "You guys back down. This person is not someone you can resist." Since he walked in so casually, naturally he didn't want to find trouble. "I'll take care of everything, you guys back down for the time being." Looking at the Woodleaf ninjas gathered around, Tsunade said very seriously. Chapter 644. Orochimaru, I didn't expect you to still be alive. And you're with this kid from the Uchiha family who killed you. Tsunade looked at Sasuke and Orochimaru wrapped in Susanoo, and said to Orochimaru with a bit of sarcasm. Although Orochimaru and Tsunade used to be comrades in arms, Tsunade didn't have a good impression of Orochimaru because of the many crazy things he did after. Sasuke controlled his eternal Manjikyu Sharingan to remove Susanoo, and he slowly landed with Orochimaru and stood opposite Tsunade. He wasn't so familiar with Tsunade and Sasuke, so he was quite silent. Therefore, the important task of communicating with Tsunade naturally fell on Orochimaru. Orochimaru took a few steps forward, looked around and said to Tsunade, "Tsunade, why do I only see you but I don't see that idiot Jiraiya?" Without responding to Tsunade's provocative words, Orochimaru directly asked Tsunade where Jiraiya was. Seeing that Orochimaru ignored her words and mentioned Jiraiya who couldn't be a ninja anymore, Tsunade's mood couldn't help but become irritable. She slowly clenched her hands into fists, and chakra began to surge on her body. Obviously, Tsunade was ready to directly punch Orochimaru. "I can make that guy Jiraiya return to normal." Seeing that Tsunade was on the verge of exploding, Orochimaru suddenly said to Tsunade very seriously. Hearing Orochimaru's words, Tsunade, who was still full of anger, suddenly calmed down. These days she and Jiraiya got along as husband and wife. To be honest, Tsunade's concern for Jiraiya had completely surpassed her concern for herself. When she heard Orochimaru suddenly say that he could make Jiraiya return to normal, Tsunade's mood directly calmed down. Although she didn't have a good impression of Orochimaru, Tsunade still recognized Orochimaru's ability. Although a ninja proficient in medical ninjutsu like her couldn't restore Jiraiya's seriously injured meridians blocked by the power of Rinnegan, Orochimaru, who was proficient in forbidden jutsu, might really be able to restore Jiraiya. Over the past few days, although Jiraiya didn't say anything, Tsunade still saw the look on Jiraiya's face when he was alone. A person who originally had a powerful strength suddenly became a powerless waste, even if Jiraiya's personality, it was actually difficult to accept it. After taking a deep look at Orochimaru, Tsunade let out a sigh of relief and loosened her clenched fists. Orochimaru, I think you know my characters. You'd like me to have a life says yours is. You know I'm SSSest. S. Sest, this want to sest, is, but for Jiraiya Tsunade was still willing to boldly try. Tsunade didn't want Jiraiya to spend his life like this. With Sasuke and Orochimaru, Tsunade walked into the courtyard belonging to the Senju clan. Even if the Senju clan had declined, after all, the Senju clan was also the founding clan of Woodleaf Village. The Hokage of the previous generations had a certain relationship with the Senju clan, so the daily expenses of Woodleaf Village were actually allocated to the Senju clan to maintain the prestige of the clan. However, Sasuke himself was born in the Uchiha clan. Compared to the declining Senju clan, the Uchiha clan's residence was undoubtedly more luxurious. So at this moment, Sasuke's heart was actually more strange as he entered the Senju clan's residence as the head of the Uchiha clan. Not to mention Orochimaru because of his rebellious nature, such luxury was almost no different from dirt in Orochimaru's eyes. The three of them quickened their pace and ignored all the scenery around them. They took Sasuke and Orochimaru into Akazuke's house near the middle and pushed the wooden door open. Sasuke and Orochimaru saw the scene inside at the same time. At this moment, Jiraiya's hair was scattered, and his face was a bit tired. He was lying on the table with his eyes closed. He seemed to have fallen asleep. There were several bottles of wine around Jiraiya, and the air was filled with a strong smell of alcohol. Obviously, Jiraiya drank too much, so he collapsed on the small table. Orochimaru didn't ask why Tsunade allowed Jiraiya to drink so much. With the understanding between Orochimaru and Tsunade, he knew that Tsunade must have wanted to stop Jiraiya from drinking again and again, but seeing Jiraiya's painful expression again and again, her heart softened again and again. Walking in front of the sleeping Jiraiya, Orochimaru slowly squatted down, then stretched out one of his fingers and placed it directly on Jiraiya's forehead. Orochimaru's chakra has become a very strange chakra after many modifications, with an extremely powerful cold aura. The moment it entered Jiraiya's body, the cold aura directly dispelled Jiraiya's drowsiness caused by drinking. Almost as if he woke up, Jiraiya directly jumped up from his collapsed position on the table. However, even though he had regained his consciousness, his body was still numbed by the alcohol. His weak body couldn't bear such an action, and Jiraiya directly fell to the ground again. Although he fell to the ground, Jiraiya still saw Orochimaru in front of him. Orochimaru, why are you still alive? Hearing Jiraiya's words, Orochimaru's face had a little smile, and said to Jiraiya with a bit of humor, "It's really a husband and wife. After living together for a long time, even the words you say are the same." Hearing Orochimaru's teasing words, Jiraiya looked at Orochimaru in front of him and couldn't help but feel that Orochimaru seemed to be different from the previous crazy madman who pursued immortality. "Jiraiya, you have been staying in Woodleaf. Although you didn't participate in those troublesome things, you also got a lot of information. In fact, the Fourth Shinobi World War isn't going to be an easy battle, you know that? I came here this time to let you and Tsunade fight side by side with me again." Chapter 645. Fight side by side? Hearing Orochimaru's words, Jiraiya couldn't help but laugh. Because he laughed too hard, his spine was slightly bent, hiding his face. But this kind of laughter wasn't comfortable at all. Jiraiya's laughter was noisy and harsh, and it was transmitted to Tsunade, Orochimaru, and Sasuke's ears. In just a moment, Jiraiya, who was still laughing wildly, slowly raised his head, and the noisy and harsh laughter came to an abrupt end. At this moment, Jiraiya's face was full of sadness and powerlessness, and his eyes were full of scarlet blood. "Orochimaru, do you remember when you left Woodleaf? At that time I caught up with you and used all the words I could say to keep you. I even decided to help you plead in front of Sensei and the elder group at all costs. But you still resolutely left, and now you come back and tell me that you want to fight side by side for the future of Shinobi World?" Lifting his weak and slightly trembling hand, Jiraiya stretched his hand in front of Orochimaru, as if to let Orochimaru see his situation more clearly. "I knew that my body was crippled after that battle. At that time I thought I could accept such a result. After all this was a sacrifice for Woodleaf and I have no regrets. But as the days passed, these obstacles on my body became more and more obvious. Gradually, even I didn't want to accept that I had become like this. I don't want to be a cripple. Jiraiya glanced at Tsunade and Orochimaru with his scarlet eyes. Intentionally or unintentionally, he seemed to ignore Sasuke's existence, and said to Orochimaru with some sadness. You know what? In the beginning when I walked on the streets, I could see the reverence in everyone's eyes for my sacrifice. Although I felt a bit shameful, it felt really good to be regarded as a hero. It was a feeling of floating in my heart. But as time passed, what I saw in those people's eyes was no longer the so-called reverence, I only saw deep pity. From then on, I didn't want to go out anymore. Every day I stayed at home and drank to pass the time. Am I qualified to fight side by side with others? Since childhood, Jiraiya had a very optimistic personality, but when the fundamental strength of a ninja was taken away from him, the optimism in his heart seemed to be taken away, and he became decadent day by day. Looking at Jiraiya's slightly trembling hands in front of him, Orochimaru's eyes gradually became cold. Now Jiraiya really disappointed Orochimaru. Tsunade, as Jiraiya's wife, will naturally try her best to tolerate and sympathize with Jiraiya. But Orochimaru was different. Orochimaru was Jiraiya's comrade in arms. Seeing his comrade in arms become so self-pitying, Orochimaru's heart was full of sorrow for his misfortune, anger for his incompetence. Orochimaru stretched out his hand and pushed Jiraiya's hand away. Orochimaru, who was half squatting, stood up directly. He looked down at Jiraiya, who was half sitting on the ground, and said to Jiraiya in a cold and angry tone, "Trash. Didn't you always say that the most important thing for a ninja is the power in his heart? Whether it was Nagato or Watergate, they were all taught by you. Although they each took different paths, I have to say that your disciples grew up very well. What made them stronger was not only their own talent, but also the hidden power in their hearts that they inherited from you. Look at yourself again. What do you look like now? Is your so-called power of the soul used to deceive those children? Does it have no effect on you at all? Jiraiya, you make me feel ashamed of you now. Sharing the name of Sannin with you makes me feel that the name of Sannin has been tarnished. I'm not Tsunade, I won't tolerate you. I will only scold you fiercely in place of your sensei and your disciples. Now you don't deserve to be Sandame's disciple, and you don't deserve to be the sensei of Nagato and Watergate. Compared to Tsunade, Orochimaru's actions at the moment were undoubtedly more fierce. In fact, when Orochimaru was only halfway through his words, Tsunade was already ready to go out and stop Orochimaru from continuing. After all, Jiraiya at the moment had become inferior because of his loss of strength. Orochimaru using such a fierce reprimand to cheer Jiraiya up was likely to directly defeat Jiraiya. But Tsunade saw Orochimaru's eyes, and there seemed to be a layer of mist in Orochimaru's eyes. Whether it was Tsunade, Jiraiya, or Orochimaru, in fact they were now in their 50s or 60s. The older people were, the more instinctively they missed the past. At this moment, the mist in Orochimaru's eyes obviously touched Tsunade's heart. Although she was Jiraiya's wife, Tsunade thought that she didn't know Jiraiya as well as Orochimaru. Originally, Tsunade was still worried about Orochimaru's other purposes, but the moment she saw Orochimaru's eyes, Tsunade's heart was completely relaxed. Because Tsunade was 100% sure that the person who was paranoid but really treated her and Jiraiya as close friends had returned. Orochimaru was completely trustworthy. Listening to Orochimaru's reprimand, Jiraiya opened and closed his mouth several times, and the Adam's apple in his throat moved up and down. Obviously, Jiraiya hoped that he could say something to refute Orochimaru's reprimand, but no matter how he thought about his own words, Jiraiya found that he had no room to refute at all. Because his performance during this time was really, as Orochimaru said, shameful. After clenching his fists several times and loosening them again, Jiraiya finally firmly held his hands again. After slamming them on the ground, Jiraiya stood up again and looked at Orochimaru, who used to compete with him and help each other. The weakness in his eyes had subsided a lot, and there was only firmness left. He looked directly at Orochimaru. Seeing Jiraiya's appearance, Orochimaru and Tsunade's faces more or less had a gratified smile. They knew that Jiraiya was back. Chapter 646. Orochimaru. Although his eyes were still bloodshot, Jiraiya's eyes were full of determination at this moment. Jiraiya looked at Orochimaru deeply with his eyes and slowly said, "I know that since you've come here, you must have understood my situation and have come up with a plan to solve it. No matter what your purpose is, I hope you can help me recover the tendons of my hands and feet. The current ninja world really needs the power of the Sannin, and the title of Sannin will never be humiliated in my hands. The title of Sannin has a very special meaning for Jiraiya. The battle that made Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru famous was the battle with Hanzo the Salamander of the Rain Village. Since then the entire ninja world really had a place for Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru. For such a title Jiraiya undoubtedly cherishes it very much. That's natural, Tsunade, I need your help. Looking at Tsunade, after Orochimaru finished this sentence, he directly walked towards the laboratory specially set up for Tsunade in the courtyard of Senju's house. Seeing that Orochimaru left and successfully persuaded Jiraiya, Sasuke naturally didn't want to stay here any longer and directly turned and left. Sasuke's departure was nothing. Jiraiya just looked at Orochimaru's departing figure with a smile and said to Tsunade, "After so many years, I didn't expect that a person like Orochimaru who was so indifferent to feelings also became sensible. Now, to give us some space to talk?" Jiraiya said and made a grimace at Tsunade who was standing beside him. The grimace was ugly but it made Tsunade's heart slightly sour. All the emotions she felt when she saw Jiraiya's self-degeneration all emerged from her heart. Tsunade's way of expressing her feelings was very primitive and direct. She directly pulled Jiraiya's ear with her hand and said to Jiraiya after twisting it hard, "You idiot, if you dare to make me worry like this again, I'll definitely teach you a lesson." Because Tsunade twisted his ear, Jiraiya made an exaggerated expression as if he was going to die in pain. After seeing Jiraiya's expression, Tsunade thought that it was because she used too much strength to make Jiraiya feel pain. After all, the tendons in Jiraiya's body were blocked, and his physical fitness also decreased a lot. He quickly let go of Jiraiya's ear and slowly rubbed Jiraiya's slightly red ear, as if to check if he really used too much strength. Looking at the concerned Tsunade in front of him, Jiraiya had a gentle smile on his face. He lifted Tsunade's face and kissed her on the forehead. Feeling that she was suddenly kissed by Jiraiya, Tsunade also pushed Jiraiya away like a girl, and her face blushed like a sunset glow. You. How did you become like this after recovering your spirit? Let's go, Orochimaru is still waiting for us. After that, Tsunade ran out of the room like a 16-year-old girl in love. Looking at the leaving figure of Tsunade, Jiraiya also had a smile on his face. It seems that I really failed too many things during this period of time. Now I won't run away anymore. After that, he stepped out of the room and walked towards the direction where Tsunade and Orochimaru left. Just like when he was a child, he went on a mission with Orochimaru and Tsunade with a satisfied and bright smile on his face. Hey. Watergate's face was full of fatigue and his face and body had large and small wounds. Looking at the almost unscathed Uchiha Madara standing opposite him, Watergate's heart was filled with a sense of powerlessness. Uchiha Madara was too strong. At the beginning of the battle, Watergate didn't notice it, but as the battle progressed, Watergate felt more and more that Uchiha Madara seemed to be playing with the 5 Kages, including himself. Even though he and the other Kages had exhausted their strength, Uchiha Madara was still at ease. With Wood Release, Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, and Rinnegan, Uchiha Madara didn't put the 5 Kages in his eyes at all. A variety of strange moves were directly displayed by Uchiha Madara, and the 5 Kages have become very tired to deal with it. Looking at Uchiha Madara standing opposite them at the moment, his face looked tired of playing with them. It's really slow. I've been delaying for so long and it's still not done? There's obviously something to replace the 9 tails and the Hachibi, isn't there? Uchiha Madara's eyes were gradually filled with impatience. It was obvious that Obito's progress was really slow. As for the release of the Edo Tensei and the defeat of Yahiko Kabuto, such a trivial matter was not taken seriously by Uchiha Madara. Anyway, it's just a small role. Uchiha Madara's hands were quickly forming hand seals. It was obvious that he was ready to use ninjutsu again. Wood Release, World of Flowers and Trees. With the power of Senju Takuma cells and Rinnegan in his body, Uchiha Madara directly displayed a large range attack. Thick roots spread from the place where Uchiha Madara was, and almost in just a few seconds, it had covered most of the battlefield. Unlike the previous Tensei Earthquake Star, this time Uchiha Madara's World of Flowers and Trees directly covered the ground. Even if there is a missing piece, it can still be replenished. Even Watergate's Flying Thunder God has almost no effect on such an attack. Almost in an instant, the giant trees that covered most of the battlefield bloomed one after another. The pale yellow pollen spread directly in the air. Even if the ninjas of the Ninja Allied Forces have held their breath, the pollen rushed directly into the lungs of every ninja. At the moment of contact with the pollen, the ninjas of the Ninja Allied Forces directly collapsed on the ground. At this moment, the 5 Kages were also trying their best to wrap their chakra around themselves. It's already very stressful for them to not be attacked by the pollen. They simply had no ability to help the rest of the ninjas. They could only helplessly watch the ninjas fall to the ground one by one. Chapter 647. Compared to the attack and defense of the Tree World Advent, the attack of the Flower World Advent was slightly weaker. After all, a large amount of chakra was used to accelerate the flower and release pollen, and the pollen itself was mostly paralyzing instead of lethal poison. Uchiha Madara looked indifferently at the ninjas of the ninja allied forces falling one by one, and there was no wave in his heart. However, the 5 Kage could only try their best to use their chakra to spread the flower around them. When they saw the familiar faces of their ninja village falling directly to the ground, their eyes were full of anxiety, but they didn't know what to do. However, at the edge of the battlefield, a group of people wearing white clothes with scarlet embroidery directly broke into the battlefield. Obviously, a large amount of pollen spread in the air, but these people in white robes weren't affected at all, and directly broke into the battlefield at an extremely fast speed. The 5 Kage were very keen to find these figures in white clothes that broke into the battlefield. Looking at the scarlet embroidery on their bodies, Watergate's eyes flashed with a hint of thought. After all, although he didn't see it very clearly, the clothes of these people were very similar to the clothes of Uchiha Sasuke that just appeared on the battlefield. Could it be that these people are from the Blood Cloak Pavilion? A familiar yet strange force directly appeared in Watergate's mind. Over the years, the development of the Blood Cloak Pavilion has been very rapid. This hidden force that wasn't so well known has shown its strong foundation after its determination to surface, and directly expanded its influence in the ninja world on a large scale by relying on superb medical methods that are different from medical ninjutsu. They even began to share a lot of benefits that belong to the ninja village by accepting tasks. However, the Blood Cloak Pavilion seems to have persuaded the political leaders of the large and small countries with their own political means. Even if the ninja village resisted such a force, the Blood Cloak Pavilion still quickly spread its influence in the ninja world. Before the Fourth Shinobi World War, Watergate wanted to contact the Blood Cloak Pavilion through Nangongja and let the Blood Cloak Pavilion join the ninja allied forces. But in the end it didn't work, and it was even a bit of loss that forced Nangongja, who had a delicate relationship with the Woodleaf village, to leave the Woodleaf village. Although Watergate can't be very clear about what kind of strength Nangongja has, but if Nangongja can appear here and fight against Uchiha Madara with the 5 Kages, then the situation will definitely become different. Just when Watergate was still thinking that if Nangongja appears in the battle, the situation will be different, a shining black object on the edge of the sky directly rushed toward the center of the battlefield out of thin air. The shining black object was getting closer and closer to the center of the battlefield. The originally dense pollen was also directly blown away by the strong wind brought about by the black object's movement. As the black object approached, whether it was the 5 Kages or Uchiha Madara, they also clearly saw what this black object was. It was a black lion with a golden mane and black lightning coiling around its body. Woodleaf Yama Nangongja summoned beast, Black Lion Ryo. The Fourth Shinobi World War has broken out for a long time, and Nangongja, who has been actively preparing for the Blood Cloth Pavilion, finally judged the best time to join the battlefield at this moment, and directly let the Blood Cloth Pavilion people rush into the battlefield to prepare for battle. Blood Cloth Pavilion disciples, listen to orders, rescue the ninjas of the ninja allied forces who have lost the ability to fight and leave the battlefield. Nangongja's voice directly spread throughout the battlefield under the blessing of internal force, and Nangongja's commanding tone also directly passed into Watergate's ears. Originally, Minato was a little confused as to why Nangongja reacted so violently when he heard that Minato wanted to drag the Blood Garment Pavilion's forces into the battle. However, when he heard Nangongja's commanding tone, Minato suddenly understood. So it's like this? Just as he judged, Nangongja and the Blood Cloth Pavilion have a very close relationship, and looking at the current situation, it is very likely that Nangongja is the head of the Blood Cloth Pavilion that has been difficult to determine the true identity of. Nangongja looked around and looked at the flower tree realm that was constantly sprinkling light yellow pollen, and looked at the 5 Kages who were wrapped in a large amount of chakra, and several gullies appeared between his eyebrows involuntarily. He transferred his internal energy into Li Yang's body. With the help of Nangongja's powerful internal energy, the black lightning on Li Yang's body became even more active. This kind of battlefield is not suitable for fighting, let's clear it first. Ignoring the 5 Kages and Uchiha Madara, Nangongja directly told Ryo his decision. Ryo also seemed to be very uncomfortable with the light yellow pollen in the air, and the black thunder on her body directly exploded after a short period of accumulation. Nangongja didn't care about the 5 Kages and Uchiha Madara in the battlefield, and directly let Ryo release the black thunder wrapped around her body. In an instant, the black thunder wrapped around Ryo's body directly exploded, and the black thunder instantly turned into a thunder sea with a diameter of more than 300 meters. The flower tree realm was very strong, but after encountering the destructive black thunder, it directly turned into a piece of charcoal like an ordinary tree. The black thunder itself had an extremely scorching temperature, and the light yellow pollen in the air also directly lost its activity under the effect of the black thunder, and fell to the ground like dust. Looking at the light yellow pollen in the air directly falling to the ground, the chakra on the 5 Kages also became a bit thinner, and the 5 Kages who had been keeping their mouths closed, could finally open their mouths and talk freely. Nangong Zan Yu. Watergate directly appeared beside Nangongja, and the other Kages also gathered around Nangongja, as if they were wondering whether the famous Nangongja was also Watergate's hidden trump card. But before Watergate could finish his words, Nangongja looked at Watergate with slightly indifferent eyes and said, "Fourth Hokage-sama, the one standing in front of you now is not Nangongja of the Woodleaf Village. The one standing here at the moment is Nangongja, the leader of the Blood Cloak Pavilion." Chapter 648. Taking a deep look at Nangongja, Watergate's heart was also full of heaviness, although Watergate always knew that Nangongja must be hiding something. But he didn't expect that the truth was still beyond Watergate's expectations. Nangongja, the strong man who once brought glory to Woodleaf, turned out to be the leader of a super force like the Blood Cloak Pavilion. Although his heart was filled with all kinds of emotions, Minato still forced himself to calm down. Looking at Nangongja who was standing on top of Li Yang who was shining with black lightning, Minato finally let out a long sigh and said to Nangongja, "Nangongja, whether you are a ninja or a leader, since you appeared here and let the members of the Blood Cloak Pavilion rescue the ninjas of the Ninja Allied Forces who have lost their fighting ability, then you are on the same side as us. In the current battle, a large number of ninjas are no longer a decisive factor, so it is not a bad idea to take them away from the battlefield." Watergate has never been a narrow-minded person. If he was really a person who didn't have a sense of the overall situation, Watergate would never be able to sit in the position of Hokage. Now that Nangongja and Watergate suddenly showed their cards, although Watergate was quite a bit caught off guard, it didn't make Watergate lose his calm as a qualified leader. After all, from the overall point of view, the appearance of Nangongja actually played a positive role in the Ninja Allied Forces, didn't it? Among the 5 Kages, the remaining Kages of the other villages didn't know much about Nangongja. Seeing that Watergate was willing to take the initiative to take the task of communicating with Nangongja, several of them began to look at Uchiha Madara, always vigilant of Uchiha Madara's sudden attack. But at this moment, Uchiha Madara didn't seem to have any signs of attacking. Instead, his eyes were fixed on Nangongja, and his eyes, which had become a little impatient, were now full of a new look. Internal Force Cultivator? Although the internal force system has declined in the chaotic warring states period, internal force cultivators still shone with glory. Compared to the ninjas who relied on all kinds of strange attacks, the inner force cultivators developed the potential of the human body almost to the limit. Their melee attacks were simply invincible. Even the samurai group, which had always been the mainstream, actually only had the advantage of having more people than the inner force cultivators. It's really a powerful internal force cultivator. From the warring states period to the present, although I have seen all kinds of internal force cultivators, but a person who can practice to this point must be a genius in internal force cultivation. Since that's the case, let me properly test your quality. Uchiha Madara was a person who did what he said. When he wanted to test Nangongja's strength, the huge chakra in his body also began to circulate. Originally, Watergate seemed to want to say something to Nangongja so as to improve the relationship between Nangongja and the Ninja Allied Forces, but the moment Uchiha Madara circulated the chakra, Watergate and Nangongja immediately reacted, and stood side by side with the other Kages facing the powerful Uchiha Madara. The eternal Mangekyo Sharingan pattern in his eyes rotated at high speed, and the Susanoo that Uchiha Madara used back and forth many times was once again displayed. The complete blue Susanoo directly appeared in front of the 5 Kages and Nangongja. Looking at the Susanoo, the faces of the 5 Kages were slightly bitter. After all, the scene of the 5 Kage-level powerhouses being toyed with by the Susanoo made the 5 Kages feel very unreconciled. Go. the sound of metal rubbing against each other reached everyone's ears. At this moment, Nangongja slowly unsheathed the heavenly calamity sword in his hand. As the tribulation sword was unsheathed, Nangongja's mouth also slightly whispered, "Rio, protect me." As if in response to Nangongja's call, the black lion Rio's body gradually transformed at this moment. Almost in an instant, the black brilliance that Rio transformed into directly protected Nangongja's body. The black brilliance gradually outlined the shape of a set of heavy armor, and black lightning jumped on the golden black armor, full of a kind of overbearing momentum. Sword Chi Dragon Rise. Holding the sword with both hands, Nangongja's internal strength and sword chi were almost unrestricted, and they poured into the tribulation sword. Transparent sword chi with a slight blue luster was directly born from the tribulation sword, and under the control of Nangongja, the sword chi continued to condense, and finally turned into the shape of a divine dragon that coiled around Nangongja's body. Seeing that Nangongja has begun to prepare to attack, the experienced 5 Kage naturally didn't stay idle. The 4th Raikage AI's body began to surge with blue and white lightning at this moment, and the 5th Raikage Gaara's body was also ready to attack. The 4th Raikage Watergate took out a flying thunder god kunai from his ninja tool bag, and the 5th Mizukage Mei and Sandame Tsuchikage also surged with chakra at this moment. As long as the time is right, they will use their fastest speed to cast their Kekiai Genkai or Kekiai Genkai. The 6 of them didn't speak, but their long-term combat experience and understanding of each other's intelligence still made the 6 of them have a certain degree of tacit understanding. Nangongja pointed the tip of his sword, and a huge sword chi dragon rushed directly in the direction of the Susanoo. When the 9 tails attacked the village, Nangongja's sword chi dragon was not perfect, but after so many years of experience, he believed that his sword chi dragon would never lose to the 9 tails in terms of destructive power. Roar! The sword chi dragon roared to the sky and directly rose into the sky. Its huge body, not inferior to the Susanoo, directly rushed forward. Nangongja and Raikage also directly increased their speed at this moment, and closely followed behind the sword chi dragon that opened the way for the 2 of them. The cloud follows the dragon and the wind follows the tiger. At this moment, Nangongja and AI's bodies were covered with lightning, one black and one blue, like the clouds that accompanied the dragon, beautiful and with powerful destructive power. Uchiha Madara also began to control the Susanoo to launch an attack, and the Susanoo's general skill Yasaka no Magatama was directly condensed under the control of Uchiha Madara. After a short time of charging, the Yasaka no Magatama was directly thrown out by the Susanoo and collided with the sword chi dragon. Chapter 649. At the moment when the sword chi dragon collided with the Yasaka's Magatama, a huge explosion reverberated in the battlefield, and blue chakra flames and tiny sword chi fragments spread directly in the place where the 2 collided. But in the blink of an eye, the sharp sword chi dragon directly rushed out of the sword chi and chakra flames. Roar! At this moment, the sword chi dragon was no longer as delicate and flawless as when Nangongja first condensed it. There were many large and small gaps on the sword chi dragon's body. It was the existence of such gaps that gave the sword chi dragon an inexplicable sense of heaviness in addition to sharpness. When the 5 Kages and Uchiha Madara were fighting, Nangongja actually observed the battle from the periphery of the battlefield for a long time. He was well aware of how powerful Uchiha Madara was. Although his sword chi dragon was very powerful, it was impossible to rely on the sword chi dragon to directly condense Uchiha Madara's Susanoo using the power of Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan and Rinnegan. For a long time, the sword chi dragon has been used by Nangongja as a direct and frontal attack skill, but now under the control of Nangongja, the sword chi dragon rushed in the direction of the Susanoo. Even if the Susanoo under the control of Uchiha Madara tried its best to wield the katana in its hand, the sword chi dragon still found a gap and directly flashed through. The sword chi dragon flexibly approached the huge body of the Susanoo, and Nangongja and A also cooperated with the sword chi dragon to break into the place very close to the Susanoo. Circling its huge body, the sword chi dragon directly wrapped around the Susanoo's body, and the powerful sword chi directly broke out. The sharp sword chi constantly cut the Susanoo's body, making it unable to make any effective movements. After seeing that the sword chi dragon was bound by the Susanoo, Nangongja and A also stood on the left and right sides of the Susanoo's body. The 2 of them broke out a powerful energy. Obviously they were brewing an unparalleled attack. On the ground, Watergate directly threw the flying thunder god kunai in his hand towards the direction of the Susanoo. Because a large amount of chakra was injected into the flying thunder god kunai, the kunai rushed straight towards the direction of the Susanoo like a streamer. Senjutsu, Futon, Raisin Shuriken Jutsu. Without the slightest hesitation, Watergate directly displayed the sage mode that he had been practicing for a long time. He slightly bent his body, and the powerful chakra directly condensed in his left hand. A Rasengan was produced in his hand almost instantaneously, but Watergate still didn't stop condensing chakra in his hand. With the continuous injection of chakra, the Rasengan in Watergate's hand finally changed shape under the high-speed rotation, and a chakra shuriken appeared in Watergate's hand, which was about the same size as Kaze's shuriken or even bigger. Nangongja raised the Heaven's Disaster Sword in his hand high, and his sword chi and internal energy continued to converge on the Heaven's Disaster Sword. The Heaven's Disaster Sword was completely wrapped by the blue sword chi and internal energy, and a long sword more than 10 meters long appeared in Nangongja's hand. He slowly released the long sword in his hand, and the Heaven's Disaster Sword also floated under the sword chi and internal energy. Slowly the Heaven's Disaster Sword flew directly towards Nangongja, blooming with a brilliant brilliance. Heaven's Sword. Compared to Watergate's and Nangongja's seemingly powerful attack, A's attack at this moment looked a bit more simple. His whole body was still wrapped in blue and white thunder chakra, but because he used all his strength at this moment, the thunder and lightning directly wrapped around his body like an armor. He put his 5 fingers together in front of his body, and a powerful thunder that was almost visible to the naked eye wrapped around his hand at this moment. At this moment, A's hand was no longer an ordinary hand, but more like a divine axe that could split the sky. It was not sculpted, but it was impossible to ignore. Thunder-crushing horizontal Chio dance. It seemed that Watergate felt that the flying thunder god's special kunai that he just threw out had reached the designated position, and the condensed Senjutsu Futon, Raisin Shuriken in his hand was almost done, so he directly used the advanced ninjutsu that he developed from the flying thunder god's jutsu, Flying Thunder God Second Dan. In an instant, Watergate's figure directly appeared behind Susanoo where the special kunai was. Seeing Watergate's arrival, Nangongja and Yondaime Reikage also cast the ninjutsu that they had been saving up. The Heaven's Sword was directly swung down under the control of Nangongja. Although it looked quite illusory, the Heaven's Sword was shaped by incomparably sharp sword energy and thick internal force. Under the control of Nangongja, the Heaven's Sword didn't receive the slightest hindrance and directly cut the arm of Susanoo that was close to Nangongja. Although Susanoo has a strong defensive power, its body has been weakened by the sword energy attached to the dragon, and Nangongja's Heaven's Sword was extremely sharp, so one of Susanoo's arms was directly cut off. On the other side, A also began his action. His family's ninjutsu lightning strike horizontal Chio dance was displayed by A. Because of the pressure from Uchiha Madara and his responsibility as a Kage to protect his village, the lightning strike horizontal Chio dance that he displayed at this moment was absolutely beyond the level of his performance. Increasing his body's speed to the extreme, relying on the faintly formed Raiten chakra armor on his body, A directly ignored the blazing chakra flames on Susanoo's body, and fiercely cut off the other arm of Susanoo with his palms wrapped in chakra, almost instantly cutting off the other arm of Susanoo. Seeing Nangongja and A at the same time, Watergate on Susanoo's back also began to exert his strength. His body fell down and the Senjutsu Futon, Raisin Shuriken Jutsu, condensed in his hand was also raised high by Watergate. Feeling the natural energy contained in the Raisin Shuriken Jutsu in Watergate's hand, Nangongja, who was able to relax a little, also wrapped part of the sword energy in the Dragon of Sword Energy and sent it to Watergate's Raisin Shuriken Jutsu. Chapter 650. Feeling Nangongja's sword chi and natural energy as a mediator, Watergate nodded slightly to Nangongja. Controlling the Sage Jutsu chakra in his body, Watergate directly threw out the huge Sage Jutsu in his hand. After the huge chakra shuriken was thrown out by Watergate, it directly hit the back of the Susanoo's head with a loud wind sound. After being hit by a series of attacks from Nangongja and Watergate, even Uchiha Madara felt a little dazed at this moment. After all, when he was fighting against the 5 Kages before, he didn't feel any pressure at all. But now, Nangongja was on the opposite side, and the situation of the battle became quite a bit out of his expectations. As an internal energy cultivator who attracted the interest of Uchiha Madara, Nangongja was now able to directly use a long-range attack that was beyond Uchiha Madara's understanding of internal energy cultivators, Sword Chi. This change that was not foreseen by Madara really made Uchiha Madara suffer a lot. One step slower, one step slower. In any case, a little mistake in the battle would inevitably lead to more serious consequences. Boom. The Raisin Shuriken, which had become extraordinarily powerful after being strengthened by the Sage Jutsu and Sword Chi, directly hit the Susanoo. The moment it came in contact with the body of the Susanoo, it directly exploded. A storm-like violent airflow mixed with sharp sword chi directly cut off a large part of the Susanoo's body, including the back of its head. However, the most important effect of the Raisin Shuriken was not to greatly weaken the Susanoo. Instead, it directly squeezed the huge body of the Susanoo to the ground with its huge power. Now Susanoo has lost both of its arms because of Nangongjo and A's attack, and its balance has decreased a lot. After being knocked down to the ground, it couldn't stand up for a while. Seeing Susanoo fall to the ground, Gaara, who had been preparing on the side, immediately launched his ninjutsu. Desert, traitor. The ground where Susanoo fell suddenly began to surge, and 4 giant hands made of sand directly emerged from the soil. 4 sand giant hands grabbed Susanoo's 2 legs and shoulders, firmly grasping Susanoo, and with the sword chi dragon wrapped around Susanoo's body, Susanoo didn't have the possibility to move at all. When Inoki saw that Uchiha Madara's Susanoo was being controlled, he immediately used Earth Release, super light heavy rock technique to make his body float in the air. He put his palms together and a large amount of chakra condensed in his hands. Terumi Mei saw Inoki flying in the air, and her hands quickly formed hand seals to cast her Kekkei Genkai, Lava Release, Melting Monster Technique. The extremely sticky and corrosive Lava Release ninjutsu was cast by Terumi Mei. Under her control, the Melting Monster Technique directly fell on Susanoo's chest armor. The powerful corrosiveness made the Susanoo's chest armor thin by several layers, and traces of Uchiha Madara could be faintly seen through Susanoo's armor. Seeing that the Susanoo's armor has been greatly weakened, and even Uchiha Madara could be vaguely seen, Inoki, who originally had some instinctive fear of Uchiha Madara, became a lot more confident at this moment. His Dust Release can be said to be the most likely ninjutsu to defeat Uchiha Madara among the 5 Kages. If his ninjutsu can really hit Uchiha Madara directly, then it is very likely to usher in the victory of this battle. Dust Release, Detachment of the Origin World Technique. He directly released the power that he had been accumulating for a long time, and a translucent cube was directly pushed out by Inoki. The cube was pushed further and further away, and in the process, it gradually became bigger. When the cube was about to touch Susanoo, the entire cube was almost the same size as Susanoo. Just when the 5 Kages and Nangongjo were looking forward to Inoki's ninjutsu, Gaara, who was constantly using his chakra to maintain the huge palm condensed by Desert Traitor, felt a faint throbbing in his heart at this moment. This is the feeling of danger. Because of his mother's blessing, the sand suddenly moved at this moment, but even though it was protected by the sand, Gaara still felt something attacking his abdomen. When he looked down, there was a deep wound on his abdomen, and even some of his organs were exposed to the air. After losing Gaara's chakra supply, Desert Traitor immediately collapsed. After losing the shackles of the giant sand hand, the sword chi dragon wrapped around Susanoo's body became slightly weaker because it had been maintained for too long. Uchiha Madara, who was wrapped in Susanoo, also began to exert his strength at this moment. The 2 arms that had been cut off were now restored again with the infusion of chakra. Susanoo began to struggle violently, and in a moment, it directly broke free from the shackles of the sword energy dragon. Both the 5 Kages and Nangongjo were a little confused. After all, there was no trace of the enemy on the battlefield now, so who attacked Gaara and made him unable to maintain his ninjutsu? That's right, it was Uchiha Madara who secretly used the Tomb of Samsara, border prison, after he obtained the Rinnegan, and summoned the shadow with the complete power of Uchiha Madara. Quietly retracting the shadow summoned by the Tomb of Samsara, border prison into his body, Uchiha Madara immediately controlled Susanoo to spread the wings behind him, and with a shake of the force, Susanoo's huge body flew directly into the air. Pulling out the chakra, Uchiha Madara did not hesitate to cut the chakra in the direction of Inoki. Just now, Inoki's Dust Release really made Uchiha Madara feel the threat of death. Although Uchiha Madara himself likes fighting and blood, for such a person who may threaten him and destroy his plan, Uchiha Madara doesn't mind directly erasing this person. Chapter 651. How strong is Uchiha Madara? Not to mention Madara's achievements in the shinobi world with Senju Hashirama when he was still alive, Just now Madara relied on his own strength to directly resist the joint attack of the 5 Kage and Nangongja 6 Kage level ninjas, and even beyond Kage level ninja. If such a person really wanted to kill others, how could it be so easy to resist? Susanoo rushed directly towards Sandaime Tsuchikage Inoki at a speed beyond common sense, and Inoki, who was attacked, didn't realize that Gaara was injured, and Uchiha Madara broke free from his shackles and attacked him. With a flash of the sword, the oldest and most senior of the 5 Kages, Sandaime Tsuchikage Inoki, was directly cut in half by the chakra in Susanoo's hand. Bloody rain fell directly from the sky, and Inoki's body, which had been broken into 2 parts, fell directly to the ground. Damn it! Seeing that Inoki was killed in seconds, Gaara gathered his spirit and condensed a giant hand of sand to drag Inoki's body in the direction of his fall. At this moment, although Inoki was cut in 2, after all, his strength was very strong, and his vitality was very abundant. As long as he could be treated in time by a medical ninja with superb medical skills, it was not impossible for him to recover. Almost exhausting his last strength, Gaara finally controlled the giant hand condensed from sand and directly brought Inoki's body back. Uchiha Madara didn't look back to judge whether Inoki was really killed by him or not, because Uchiha Madara was very confident that such a blow was absolutely impossible for Inoki to stop. As for medical ninja, the burning chakra flame on the Susanoo wasn't just a decoration, and there was no way to get rid of this chakra flame. Then this person's injury was completely impossible to heal. Seeing that Inoki was directly killed, Watergate, Nangongja and AI also quickly retreated to Mei and Gaara's side at this moment. Looking at Gaara's serious injuries, Watergate's eyes were full of worry. Just now, the 5 Kages and Nangongja had a slight advantage in the battle. Now that their side has lost 2 people, and the slight advantage they had before doesn't exist anymore, what kind of method should they use to fight against Uchiha Madara? Uchiha Madara controlled Susanoo to float in the air, and it seemed that he was quickly recovering chakra through the characteristics of the Edo Tensei. Although Uchiha Madara didn't launch an attack now, everyone present knew that once Uchiha Madara launched an attack, it would be thunderous. Just when the remaining 4 of the 5 Kages and Nangongja gathered together and looked a little worried, Nangongja suddenly felt a slight cracking sound from his arms. Reaching into his arms, Nangongja took a blood-red jade in his hand. This jade is now covered with white cracks, and the number of cracks is still increasing, and it seems that it will directly collapse at any time. Nangongja exerted force in his hand and crushed the blood-red jade. A strange wave came from the jade, and Nangongja also instantly interpreted the information contained in this wave. Looking at Watergate, Nangongja suddenly said, "Watergate, give me one of your flying thunder god kunai." Hearing Nangongja's words, although he was quite puzzled, Watergate believed that at such an important moment, Nangongja seemed to have received some information and asked him for the flying thunder god kunai. Therefore, without the slightest hesitation, he directly gave his remaining kunai to Nangongja. After receiving the kunai, Nangongja carefully looked at the space mark engraved on the handle of the flying thunder god kunai. It seemed that he was comparing it with some information in his mind. Then he directly bit his finger, squeezed out a drop of blood, and poured the natural energy he could control into the drop of blood. After a little hesitation, Nangongja directly pressed the bloody finger on the kunai handle. Although he was very hesitant at first, after a while, Nangongja directly used his finger to engrave the space mark. After Nangongja's engraving, although the shape of the space mark covered with blood did not change, there were many subtle changes. Compared to the previous space mark, this space mark written with blood was full of a simple and primitive feeling. Watergate was very clear about the function of the space mark on the flying thunder god kunai. Now that Nangongja has re-engraved the space mark on the kunai, it is equivalent to directly cutting off the connection between Watergate and this kunai. And it is very likely that Nangongja has already connected this space mark to another ninja who may be able to use the flying thunder god kunai. Wait, another ninja who can use the flying thunder god kunai. Suddenly, a figure with short white hair appeared in Watergate's mind. Although this strong ninja has died in this battle, the Akatsuki directly summoned the Edo Tensei that can act as an independent force. If it wasn't for some unknown reason, all the dead ninjas in the Edo Tensei were unsummoned, the current ninja allied forces will definitely be in an even more disadvantageous state. Thinking of this, Watergate couldn't help but begin to think about what kind of attitude the second Hokage should use to face Tobirama if he is really summoned by the Edo Tensei. After all, he is the Hokage of the Woodleaf Shinobi Village, he should protect the dignity of the Woodleaf Shinobi Village. As the previous Hokage who had left the shinobi world at this moment, Using the Edo Tensei to summon him back to the shinobi world is undoubtedly a denial of the current strength of the Woodleaf shinobi village and Watergate's own ability, isn't it? But at this moment, the situation on the battlefield has given Watergate no time to think about it. What everyone should do now is to gather all the forces that can be gathered to win the war. Everything else can be postponed for the time being, right? Chapter 652. With a flash of light, beyond Watergate's expectation, 7 figures appeared directly beside the 4 Kages and Nangongja. After the light faded, everyone could clearly see who the 7 figures that came to the battlefield using the modified Flying Thunder God Kunai were. The first Hokage Hashirama, the second Hokage Senju Tobarama, the third Hokage Sarutobi, as well as Konoha's Sannin Orochimaru, Jiraiya, and Tsunade gathered together. Uchiha Sasuke, who came with these 6 people, stood next to Nangongja. Hokage-sama. Minato naturally saluted respectfully when he saw the 3 former Hokage, and the other 3 Kages also saluted slightly when they saw the 3 strongest people in the history of the shinobi world, showing their respect for the strong. I didn't expect that we would have the opportunity to meet again. Hello. The young 4th Hokage. Looking at Minato, Hashirama, who has always been a bit familiar with him, greeted the other Kage and Minato, who he had met once before. Compared to Senju Takuma, Tobarama's personality was obviously much colder. Whether it was the other Kages or Watergate, Tobarama just nodded slightly and didn't say anything. Among the 3 former Hokages, Sandaime Yuanfei, who was most familiar with Watergate, also took a few steps forward to Watergate's side. Sandaime looked at Watergate with a bit of relief. Watergate, who was in sage mode, and said to Watergate, "Watergate, you did well. You've done a good job. After this war, I believe that Konoha will become stronger under your leadership." Hearing Yuanfei's praise, Watergate's heart was filled with joy. But at this moment, Minato's mind wasn't on Sarutobi. He couldn't help but look at his teacher, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru, Konoha's former shinobi. Although he wasn't very clear about what happened, since Sandaime knew how dangerous Orochimaru was, Yuanfei and his teacher Jiraiya didn't guard against Orochimaru, he naturally didn't need to be so sensitive. On the contrary, Watergate was more concerned about Jiraiya's current situation. "Jiraiya-sensei, your injuries?" Jiraiya became decadent because of his injuries. As the 4th Hokage of Woodleaf and the disciple of Jiraiya, Watergate naturally understood this fact. But looking at Jiraiya at this moment, he didn't have the appearance of being addicted to alcohol. He was full of confidence and firmness. Although Chakra's aura was hidden, Watergate could still feel the huge power contained in Jiraiya's body with his sage mode. "Don't worry. With the help of Tsunade and Orochimaru, my body has recovered." Hearing Jiraiya's words, Watergate couldn't help but look in the direction of Orochimaru. Orochimaru seemed to be very playful at this moment. He raised his hands in front of him and moved them flexibly. Obviously, Orochimaru's own hands had recovered at this moment. Sure enough, Orochimaru also understood how to remove the powerful Shiki Fujin Jutsu. The moment Uchiha Madara saw Senju Takuma in the air, his mood seemed to become unstable. As if feeling Uchiha Madara's gaze, Senju Takuma also raised his head and looked at Uchiha Madara wrapped in Susanoo. "Madara, I didn't expect that after that day we would have a day to fight again. On the way here, I also heard that you faked your death after my death and then made a series of plans. When did the insufferably arrogant Uchiha Madara, who was unwilling to accept all hypocrisy, become such a dirty person who can only lurk in the dark and use many sinister means?" Senju Takuma's words can be said to be like a knife directly piercing Uchiha Madara's heart. After the battle with Senju Takuma, although he didn't die because of his Izanagi, his body was severely injured, and his strength was reduced to less than 10%. Uchiha Madara could only try his best to prolong his life and then perfect the plan that may be implemented after his death. That time was the most humiliating memory for Uchiha Madara, and it was also the part of his memory that he didn't want to mention. Now the wound in his heart was directly opened by his opponent, his best friend Senju Takuma. In Uchiha Madara's heart, an extremely strong sense of humiliation and anger has emerged. "Hashirama?" Looking at Senju Takuma standing on the land, Uchiha Madara directly shouted his name. Uchiha Madara's hand quickly printed hand seals, and Susanoo also began to synchronize with his hand seals. Susanoo Fire Release, Great Fireball Technique. A huge fireball was directly ejected from Susanoo's mouth, attacking Senju Takuma's direction. Seeing Uchiha Madara's sudden attack, Tobarama directly stopped the other Kages who wanted to help Senju Takuma. Although his tone was cold, it was particularly hot to the Kage standing behind him. Don't worry. Such an attack is not worth mentioning in front of my big brother. Although his strength hasn't fully recovered because of the Edo Tensei, my big brother is still the shinobi no kami, Senju Takuma. Although Senju Takuma's back was facing his younger brother, Senju Takuma couldn't help but smile a little when he heard his younger brother's evaluation of him. Senju Takuma's hand seals were formed, absorbing natural energy into his body. In an instant, Senju Takuma's body has been filled with a large amount of chakra. Red lines covered Senju Takuma's face. At this moment, Senju Takuma also entered Sage Mode. Sage Mode would release, True Thousand Hands. Wooden palms directly stretched out behind Senju Takuma. With the powerful chakra, would release combined with Sage Mode directly shaped a huge Buddha with countless arms. Ha! Senju Takuma roared, and the countless palms on the huge Buddha began to stretch out in front of him, rushing directly toward the huge fireball cast by Susanoo. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.